Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I don't know if that was me or you, but I turned my Wi-Fi off because like one of the connections was causing an issue and tried to start over.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Oh,
sir. I don't know if that was me or you, but I turned my Wi-Fi off because like
well, it shows we're live.
awesome.
I'm doing a new platform. I usually you can either do live or you can record it and send it somewhere. And
Oh,
I'm new to all the podcast stuff. So
yeah.
last night I bit the bullet and I bought the paid thing. And so right now we're doing live on my private page, Facebook, and on the Legacy
Okay.
Farms Facebook and on
Okay.
our YouTube channel. And then it'll record it for me, and then I'll post it on the different podcast places. You go through a thing called Red Circle, and then it'll put it on all the podcasts that you're registered to. So you can go to iTunes. I'm having trouble with.
Hmm.
They haven't. I've registered two or three times. It's never come through, but I think it's Podbean. Amazon's got one. There's quite a few. We're on about 10 different ones. But so far, we're getting like 50 or 60 replays a week, something like that.
Hmm.
So I've been pretty happy with that. And there's been a
Yeah.
couple nights when there's like 12 or 15 people on when we were live. I like the live better. And I usually start the show out during the week. I try to answer questions the best I can, but then I pick out some of the questions that I feel like a lot of people have, would want to know. And then
Sure.
I'll go over those again here on the back porch until it gets 6 o'clock. The sun's in a spot where it blacks out my face, but I figured you guys would rather see the view than me. And so, if you want to know what I look like, there's plenty of pictures. But some of the questions that they were talking about was the weather. Here in Honduras, we only have two seasons, which is good and bad. It means we can grow crops like corn and beans, stuff like that, like 10 months out of the year, 11 months out of the year, you can grow something. And so when we're not using the greenhouses, which you can just barely see, everything's reversed. So about right in here, there's actually what we call a solar dryer, and it's where we dry the coffee when we have too much to put it on the patio. But we can also put in, it's just like a glorified greenhouse. So we'll plant corn in there, beans in there, and the workers can grow stuff even in the bad season. Because
Hmm.
it'll, even in what they call winter, when it gets down to 50, it'll stay 75 degrees in there as long as you don't ever open the door. Open it, go in, and be done with it. But it's got two layers of that ultraviolet plastic with an air gap in between them, and so that it keeps it pretty warm. So it's great for the growing season. But when
Wow.
we somebody was asking about the projects on the farm, one of those ties in with the weather here. This is the rainy season, and so one of the projects last year, there's a Honduras is divided into six different states, and so they all have their own competitions. I think one of them doesn't. One of them doesn't really grow coffee, but the main two coffee growing regions are Copan and Marcala. And so last year in the Marcala Coffee Fest, we won fourth place for our coffee. And so I had already taken some seed coffee out because that coffee came from my private garden, which is the coffee you see right below me here. It's a
Hmm.
variety called Mario Hipe. It's really difficult. If you Google elephant beans, a lot of people call them elephant beans. They're really big, but it's a really great coffee. I used to have 2 acres of it, and it looked for any opportunity that it could. Well, 200 plants are dead in this section, and so I just finally one day I said, take all the smallest plants and transplant them in the empty lot next to the house, and everything else cut it down.
Huh.
So we did, and I've got about 80 plants by the house, and so I pulled seed out last year to start drying so we could replant. And then I won fourth place in the competition. Uh, and so I decided, well, let's plant a whole bunch of them. So I think they told me there's 400 that we have in the nursery. So we're clearing a little section, and we'll plant 400 more of those plants this year. And then next year we'll probably put in like 2,000. and just and then we'll assign somebody if it keeps cupping really well and stuff. We'll assign somebody to take care to groom that little lot a little bit better. But
Mm.
the rainy season is when you have to plant the coffee. I planted a small lot one year of 3,000 plants, and I planted it off season. And every 4 days, I would drive out there with 300-gallon tanks in my truck. And I had 20 people, and all they did was go and water each individual plant. They put 1 liter of water, they put a half a liter on it, and then they came back an hour later and put another half a liter on it. And we did that for weeks just during that dry spell till the rainy season didn't start when it was supposed to. And so I planted too early. So we had to water all those plants manually, which, which took a lot of time and a lot of money.
Mm.
But it wouldn't have been near the loss. The most of your money is spent buying the plants or growing the plants for 3 months and then planting them. So that investment had already been made. So we had to just throw in a little more money in there to keep them alive. And now
Mm.
the things are 3 foot tall, and and I think that's might actually be the cup I'm drinking right now.
Does it? How long does it take from when you plant a new plant? Do you get a crop from it like the following year or right away, or does it take a few years?
4 years from the time we
Oh,
plant the seed to the time you can
wow.
drink it. Now, some of them,
Wow.
we've got a variety called the Perinema and the Marciesa are pretty fast growers. And so we'll have some crop off of that a little bit earlier, like in that 3rd year. The
Hmm.
cat, we are not gonna we're not gonna jive if you come over here for my to see if you like my coffee or not. Uh, I do have a cat that'll drink coffee, so but not
Um,
today. But yeah, that's a huge thing because once you plant that
yeah.
little guy, there's 2 meters space between it and the next plant. And literally it's 18 inches tall when we put it in the ground. So we
Hmm.
have to cut that grass 5 to 6 times a year to keep the grass because the grass will go away. Grass always grows faster than anything else. If we could just get grass to grow tomatoes, we'd be in business. But so you'll have to, you have to cut it quite a bit.
Huh.
When I cut my grass, it takes 25 guys. Um, I don't know how many days it takes them, but it's roughly $3,000 every time we cut the grass. So it's a huge investment. Um,
Huh.
so yeah, you don't want to. But as the plant gets bigger, it grows into the next plant, and then you don't have
Hmm.
to do it that often. And so then
Hmm.
we're down right now in the big plants. We just cut twice a year, so it's a little bit better. But we don't use a lot of guys will just walk through herbicide down and then they'll come back in 2 weeks and then everything the herbicide didn't kill they'll knock it out. The problem is there's no way that herbicide doesn't get into your coffee. No way,
Sure.
because those root systems are crazy big. They're going to be as
Hmm.
wide as the plant, and that's just a rule of thumb. If there's a wet spot, the roots are going to go to it. I don't care if it's 10 feet away. So you're going to pick up that herbicide in your coffee. So we just cut it with we use hose to cut it with.
Hmm.
These guys, these machetes are so sharp. We don't allow them to use machetes when they're cutting around the coffee because they'll hit it and just if they're off an inch, they'll knock the whole coffee plant down or cut a chunk out of it where it's going to be sickly for the next year.
Hmm.
That's our
Wow.
biggest worker injury that we have is they cut their own feet with the machete because you're cutting level with the ground and you're starting on your right side and you're swinging around, and if it gets out of your hand, uh, it's coming back to get you. And they'll stop an average of 4 times a day and sharpen their machetes.
Wow.
And so those suckers are sharp. And when I buy a machete, I'll take my hand grinder and do the best I can to put a point on it. And then I'll give it to Santos and he'll take it home with him. And man, when it comes back that next day, you could almost do surgery with it. Boy, she's sharp. And mine lasts like a year to year and a half. I don't have to sharpen mine 4 times a day. Just like every Christmas, I'll have them put an edge on it. So that's how much grass I cut. No, I'll whack down banana trees every here and now, now and then. But that's the main cutting I do. All right, I see Wiki Farms,
Huh.
and then I see Bill. can you see the comments, Brad?
I cannot.
Okay. I'm not sure if there's a way I can turn them on. But Bill's saying, "Hi, Brad." Bill's on here a lot. I
Okay.
try to. I'm trying to get him to like partner with me on it, and then that way, if I can't
Yeah.
do it one day, he could do it.
Sure.
But it's not real complicated. I generally have a list of things I go down. I start out with my questions and all that good stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, Somebody asked, "What are our major problems that we deal with?" Every year during picking season, it's a problem getting workers. These young guys who are key workers, they're the guys that can pick 500 or 600 pounds of coffee a day. They go to an area called Comayagua, and in Comayagua they strip cut, and so it's a couple hours away. And they have these giant mega farms, and they have their own little stores and stuff like that. And these kids can go and they house them in these barracks that look like Auschwitz or something, and they pay them like $5 a week or $6 a week. They just give them enough money to buy chips and stuff with, and they save all their money until the last day, which is good, because they're making a lot of money. But at the end of that 3 months, they're liable to have a couple $1,000s. The problem is they go buy stupid stuff. They'll go buy a TV or a motorcycle. Um, it's an iPhone, those kind of things. And in the first time the motorcycle breaks, they can't afford to fix it. The iPhone, that's a very hard item for a worker who's working as hard as they do in the conditions they do to have. The iPhones just don't take a licking. Like there's one phone that people use here. It's literally called the Tank. You can kick it, throw it, get it wet. It has two flashlights on it, so you can walk home on it, or with it. So one of the big problems normally that we face is that with the worker shortage. Right now, it's insane. The caravans are leaving here daily. Two and three and four buses a day are heading to the United States. Friday, there was a caravan that stopped in Planis, which is the next town down from me. There was people on there from India, and somehow they got into Colombia, and they're making their way South America through Central America, and they're on their way to the United States with the caravan to illegally enter, or I don't know if it's even illegal anymore. So I don't get very political a lot, but man, that's going to hurt us this year because already I'm trying to get 12 guys to dig a foundation, and I moved the pay yesterday to double what we normally pay to try to get 12 guys here for Monday.
Mm.
So I don't know what we're going to do when it comes time to start picking coffee because there's not any. They're taking the young guys are going to the States. They've got uh, this dream of like making all this money, and which I'm sure they can. But it's definitely going to be a different town when they come back if all the coffee farmers have gone broke. So I'm not sure what they'll do when they move back home. But is it right now? I've got a guard that's up on top of the hill that guards the church and the library and stuff. And we have the normal Leela buses and Vanessa, and those guys have a route. They go back and forth. The buses that we're driving by today, they're from other countries, from Salvador, and from countries that I don't even recognize the license plates on.
Mm.
And they're headed to the U.S. Well, they're headed to Mexico, and that's the last stop. They'll drop them off in Mexico just outside the U.S. border. And most of them are going to, Texas and Arizona, or where the majority of them are headed.
Mm.
So yeah, it's gonna be a huge problem for us this year, and the crop sort of looks like we're going to have more coffee this year than next. So it'll be a struggle for us to say the least. Coffee has to be picked within a day or two of turning ripe. If it sits on there more than a week, once it's been there a week, it's like already sort of semi-natural coffee, and so it's already starting to dry up. Once it ripens, at that point it starts dying and drying up. So your quality is going to go downhill pretty quick. Uh, the other people were asking about the electricity was another question. Normally the electricity is not too bad, but my I threw a valve in my generator, and so usually my generator sits outside the kitchen, so I can just go out there and fire that up. But I dropped a valve in it, so until I get it fixed, I have a DeWalt flashlight, and so that's where we are now, and that's what happened to us last night. The electricity went out. So it rained, and I moved in the house. And then as soon as I got set up in the house, we went about 10 minutes, and then the electric went out. So,
Oh,
oh, Bill, I like he's got Billy's Bean Barn on his icon.
I don't have my camera, so that's the next best thing. It's very close to what I actually look like.
I usually tell people you're a very unattractive man and that
oh.
we don't allow.
That just shows it right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I get told quite often I need to hit the gym as my legs and arms are just a little on the underdeveloped side.
I think you do go to the gym a lot, though, don't you?
I haven't in a bit. I got to get back to it. I haven't been for like a couple weeks, but so I'm
Well,
sure I'll be in pain for a while after I get back.
I used to go a lot, and then they closed the snack bar down, so there's nothing really there that I can do anymore. So, no, we try to go a couple days a week for like martial arts, but I definitely need to do more gym stuff. So that's what we've got a little homemade gym here on the farm. Uh, the weights that we built them out of concrete, or my son did, and he's big into weightlifting. So he built the to be the size of like your Olympic style weights, and we built them out of concrete. And so every once in a while, when I don't have a lot to bring, like last trip, I was bringing Grain Pro bags, so I'm allowed 70 pounds. So I filled my entire suitcase with Grain Pro bags, and it weighed like 38 pounds. So I took a 30-pound dumbbell and threw in there. And so when I came through customs, I had a bunch of plastic bags, Grain Pro, one pair of socks, one T-shirt, one pair of underwear. That's all a man needs. And so the one time Eli and I went, and I'm like, buddy, don't pack all the toothpaste and all that stuff, And then, sure enough, the flight got delayed. We had to spend the night in Houston, and we didn't have underwear, socks, none of that stuff. And I'm like, well, it's a mile to Walmart. Do you want to walk to Walmart, or do you want me to try to wash your socks and underwear in the sink? And so I finally convinced him to wear my boxer shorts turned backwards so that he could go swimming. So he wore his underwear, my boxer shorts backwards, and he went swimming. And I said, well, they're orange and they got designs all over them. They'll think they're swimming trunks, And you put the opening in the back, nobody's going to see anything. So you're good to go. And he's 12, So he's at that borderline, where between funny and pervert, that's somewhere in that thing. So now he got to go. We got stuck in a hotel. So that's our requirement. It's got to have Wi-Fi. It's got to have a pool. And it really would help if it's got a good continental breakfast. So we went and spoke at a church in Texas a couple of weeks ago, and they Jose from Third Day Coffee Seguin in Seguin, Texas, he put us up in a hotel, and first thing we did was went and check out the continental breakfast, and Eli came out and he's like, they got 2 waffle makers, Daddy. One of them makes a big waffle, and the other makes 4 little ones. I said, man, we're set now. That's all that matters. So the Wi-Fi worked great. He had to have a pool, and so we were good to go.
Oh.
Jose from Third Day has been a good guy. He when we were delivering his coffee, he said, y'all just come on up. We met halfway. He said, I'm going to get us a B&B or whatever. And he rented a caboose from 1925. And so my son Eli, he goes with me on a lot of trips. And man, he was I didn't tell him about it till we got there. And we rounded the corner. He said, look at that caboose. And I was like, that's not a caboose. That's our room. And so, man, he just went crazy. And it was still, they had a modern bed and stuff, but it still had, the little area where I don't know if he's a lineman or what he's called. Not a lineman, but the guy who rode in the caboose still had his bed and all up there. And there was an area where he had a high seat, and he could see out of all the windows when you're driving down the railroad tracks. So it was pretty cool and had a lot of authentic stuff in it. So we had a big time. Jose always takes good care of us.
Mm.
No, no. Brad, did you say you had a 540?
That's what I started with. I've had well, I've probably just overused it. I upgraded to the 800 a little over a year ago, probably almost 2 years ago now. So that's what I'm using it. And I have
I think
an extension tube, not the one that comes with it. There's actually I'm trying to remember his name, a fella in one of the fresh roast groups that
Is
makes
it the
them.
Razzo?
I don't have the new Razzo. I would like that. I have a different one, and I don't remember where I got it from. It came from somebody in Thailand, I believe.
I'm
It
intrigued.
was
I didn't know there
it
was
was
another option.
it's been so long since I bought it when I had the 5 or when I just used the 540 yet. But it's a similar idea, just a 1/4 inch thick glass tube, taller chamber, skinnier shaft, so you have higher air pressure, more air movement. I can do, depending on the humidity in the house, because I just roast in the basement, um, about 250 grams at a time. At one time, I hit 320. Really, really bogs down the motor. It's hard to keep it consistent, keep it moving. 250 is pretty a sweet spot. It's about the most I get. Lots of airflow, lots of control, and
Now, Brad, this
yeah,
is on the 800.
yeah.
Have you, out of curiosity, because I use an 800 as my primary,
Hmm.
have you ever attempted to elevate one side of it while you're doing it? Like on mine, if you're looking right at the machine on the switch, not the switch side or the control side of it,
Okay.
I have like a 1/2 inch little fake countertop sample things. I put
Okay.
2 of them underneath there and pop up that side just a 1/2 inch, not enough to make it top heavy, but just a 1/2
Okay.
inch with the factory extension. I get 275 grams religiously. I could probably go
Oh,
more than that, but some of those beans that Ashley gives me are like you said, elephant beans, and when they get roasted, they're even bigger.
yep.
so
I
just something
I
to
don't
think
know.
about.
I have tried that. I don't know if I've gone that high. Um, my my concoction is a little bit. I have the roast. I could walk down there and show you quick. I have the roast chamber, and then I have the original 540 roast chamber with the bottom cut out set on top of it. So it actually has a really tall. It's top heavy.
Oh wow.
If
Okay.
I tilt it too much, but I can get a lot. If I don't do that, um, I get beans stuck in the the chaff collector on top sometimes.
Gotcha.
So I'll walk down there and show you really quick. If my phone battery was almost dead, so I had it plugged in, and I'm sorry if it's noisy in the house, but
We
I've
just won't
thought
let you
about
on anymore.
I I've wanted to upgrade to the Razor, just haven't bit the bullet to spend the money, and I love the slotted sides, and that he has the thermal coupler built in. So let's see if how do I turn my camera around? Is there a way to turn the camera around? Wrong button. Well, I don't know how to turn the camera around. It is behind me. So I put it, this is a vent hood for a stove that I put in just to help with ventilation and light. And so, see if you can see. This is how it's usually run
Oh,
all
look at
together.
that.
Um,
Oh, look out the
and
man's here.
what's that?
I said, look out the man's here.
So I just have a thermocoupler that's like 12 inches that runs down to the center down here where the beans are dancing. The extra height keeps a lot of airflow down low, but I don't have them getting stuck in the chaff collector. When I remove this, I end up shooting beans right into the chaff collector. So that has been my little contraption. I've used it like this for like 2 years. And this is the modified, just solid, 1/4 inch thick. When it gets hot, the glass holds heat for a long time. And yeah, that's that.
Now,
Works good.
The thermocoupler that you put into it,
Yeah.
what is there a different? So do you still get the original temperature reading from the original?
Yeah, this is completely. Um,
So is there a difference in between those two temperatures?
yeah, if the turn this on, it won't show now. This still shows. Gonna have to go away.
Because
This
I
was.
always wondered if you're blowing, let's say, 400-degree air. I didn't
Yep,
see how it wouldn't be 400 degrees on both of them.
it's not. The beans are usually cooler, so this will be the internal down here. It'll take a minute, but the temperature in the roast chamber is usually anywhere from 30 to 40 degrees cooler, depending on where you are in the roast. Does that make sense?
So
Um,
that probe is in the bottom where the beans
it,
are, or is it?
it is. I'm sorry, I can't see my screen very well to show
Okay.
you. It's right here in the very center of the roast chamber. So this just sits. It's 12 inches long. I drilled a hole in the top all the way through at a certain angle that leaves it right in the middle.
Okay.
And if you lift this off, it's just dangling, but ends up in the middle of the beans. And you can watch the temperature within the machine as well as from the thermocoupler. They're always different. And when I start out, that gap is a lot bigger because you're trying to bring a lot of energy into the beans, and that takes a while for that to build up. And towards the end of the roast, they're closer, but it also depends on the machine leads the roast. So if I'm trying to increase the heat, I've got to crank the machine up higher, and it takes a while for the roast chamber to get up to that temperature. But then, I mean, if I get too hot too fast, I don't like to pass 240 usually at the end of the roast. So if I'm getting close, I'll turn the temperature down to try to hold it there till the end of whatever the development time is I want.
You're talking about 240 Celsius.
I'd rather not 240, 440. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I am hitting first crack at the bean temperature about 410 almost consistently.
My drum
And
roaster is 393. It's almost like clockwork with the washed.
really,
The honey process is a little bit higher, but it'll start first crack before 400, even with the honey process.
and is that how big is that roaster?
I normally do 25 pounds.
Just a bit
Okay.
bigger than ours, Brett.
Yeah. I think that would affect it though, because you have a lot more energy to maintain temperature in something that size. You know what I mean? When you
Yeah.
where inside the little roaster, it fluctuates a lot more. I think that I would assume.
I have the Hucky 500, and that little IR thing that goes under the roaster. Man, that thing's got a lot of power. It's got a lot of energy, and you can really control those beans. But my big roaster, when you're watching, I've got the Artisan program, and you're watching
Yeah.
that curve go up. If you pull your trier out, you can see a little pop So
Hmm.
it's the probes are pretty sensitive because it's sucking that cold air, the room temperature air in there, and just for a
Yeah.
second you'll see like a little dip. And I've played
Huh.
with it. I'll pull it in, put it out, pull it in, just jacking around with it. But
Yeah.
I've got the 700, the Fresh Roast 700. Um, I've burnt more coffee than a lot of people have roasted, trying to
That's what you
learn how to
said.
use it. Uh, the
I
first one, I
you
beat my head against the wall because I couldn't get the coffee to roast. And then come to find out, brand new out of the box, the it wasn't generating enough heat. It'd get to like 300, and that was it. And so
oh,
I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And I told the company about it, and they're like, "Oh, we had some problems." So they sent me a new one. And then, it took a couple months.
that's kind of what happened with my 540 when I upgraded it because
Oh
but
no.
I'd used it for about probably 5 years or better, and I just assumed I'd worn out the heating element because I'd get up to like 300 and it would just cruise there. And no matter what you did with the airflow or the roast size, I couldn't get it any hotter. And thought it was probably time to move on, update that. But I'd love to get to a bigger roaster, but for now that it is what it is. I'm not ready to spend 3 grand on a roaster.
Well, you can be Snoop. Can y'all see? This is Jose from Third Day Coffee in Seguin.
Hey
He's a
Jose,
little home roaster. He sells at farmers markets and stuff like that.
cool.
No, he got the big fancy U.S. roaster, man. He brought it out to the house in the trailer, and I got to see that bad
Wow.
boy. He's got push buttons and everything on that bad boy. My roaster's big, but it's an artisan roaster. It's got no buttons, none of that. And
Hmm.
and this Eli kid here, that's my son Eli. If you guys can y'all see him on your screen?
Yeah,
So my next task is to get Eli to start roasting on mine. But
it's
as far as
fun.
a pretty machine goes, Jose at Third Day has got that's a really pretty machine,
Hmm.
and he roasts with mesquite wood and pecan, and he's throwing all kinds of stuff in there. He's got some really unique, unusual coffees.
Huh.
Jose, I was asking, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I was asking Ashley the other day. I was like, hey, how close is Jose to New Mexico? There's a roaster down there. I want him to go pick me up. He didn't think you were close enough.
If a good enough deal, we'll run up there. Eli and I are always down for a road trip.
Yes, me too.
I think in about 2 weeks, Eli and I are headed to it's an event called Coffee Con. It's just outside of Chicago.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've heard of it.
so we're going to go. Kevin Sinnott, his book is in the house. He's written 3 coffee books, and so he asked us to come down. They're having a sustainable coffee forum, and so there's going to be a farmer from Kenya, one from Ethiopia, one from Colombia, and one from Honduras. And we're going to be the Honduras. So we're going to go down there for a couple of days and talk about coffee. And so I'm not sure. We'll try to take some coffee down. I've still got to work out all the particulars. They don't have a schedule yet of exactly what all is going on, or they haven't sent me one. They've got a list of stuff, but I'm not sure exactly what the schedule is. If we're doing it once a day or twice a day, or exactly what's going on. But Eli and I are hoping for some free time to play around too, and I'm going to try to get. They're doing pour overs on a lot of the tables, so I'm going to try to get caffeinated.
Oh, you'll be caffeinated by then.
Yeah, I'd say I've got water. I've had 4 cups today, so I feel I'm good for now.
I've been drinking plenty of water because you fly, you get dehydrated,
Yep.
and then the altitude doesn't help any. I'm always real tired the first day after I get here, and then I stayed up till I think 1:30 the first night, and right before I left, I took everything out of the house, and we had the guys. We've got termites or some variation of termites, so I had some guy come in and like fumigate the whole house and all that. So we took everything out of the house. So when I came back, I got here about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I basically just I drug in the box spring. So I slept on the box spring that night with 2 sheets, and so then the next day when Anna and her group came in, we got the house set up and stuff like that. So I've been organizing a lot, and then we broke ground on the classroom yesterday. So I've got guys digging. They're not digging today, but they'll be digging again tomorrow. So I've been trying to do podcasts, get podcast stuff organized. And Jose, I bit the bullet on the StreamYard thing. I did the $240 plan. Is that what you got?
No, I think mine's like $27 a month or something.
You got the big boy plan then.
No. Oh, for the annual, yeah. I guess it comes out to, I don't know. It comes out of the account. I try not to look at it because then I might get disgusted with how little money's in there. So
Well, there's 3 of them. There's the free one, the medium one, and then the bigger one. I got the medium one
I got the medium one.
because I'm streaming right now on my Ashley Williams Facebook, Legacy Farms Facebook, and then Legacy Farms YouTube. And supposedly it's recording it somewhere.
Yes. At the end, you'll be able to download everything. If you want to download the video, you can. I usually download the audio, and then I put the audio in that red circle, and then it goes out to all the different podcast sites. In fact, I picked yours up the other day on Amazon.
Oh, you did? Cool.
Yep, I was going through there, and it's like Legacy Farms, and I was like, hey, I'm going to listen to this one.
I know that guy. I'll listen to somebody
Yeah.
ramble on for. Hey, I got a question for the group. Is it chocolate you can't give to a cat or a dog?
Dog.
It's
Dog.
both.
Is it
It's
both?
I don't know.
Well, we're going to see because he's well into 1.5 Oreos.
Oh boy.
So we'll see. It's the only way I can keep him from jumping up on the table is I throw him a.
Is killing him? That's
I hope not, but we've got 18 of them. And so, and they're all fat. I saw a mouse this morning in the shop. So I'm like, well, we're going to have to cut back on the food. So I didn't feed any of them today. I'm like, well, go catch a mouse. That's your job. So I hope nobody here works for PETA.
I'll be back and forth out of the view because I'm actually roasting right now. Should be sleeping, but I'm roasting. So you'll see me
I'll
get
sleep
it.
when I'm dead. Eli,
Sleep's overrated.
Yeah. As long as you got caffeine.
I just got
went
done
cup
roasting.
shopping
so.
today, Eli. Can you hear me, Eli?
Yeah,
I went cup shopping.
that
It's a
sounds
weird-
like you.
It's like, see how weird it's shaped? I don't know. It's not even an oval. It's sort of funny shaped.
Hey, you asked me about the Marciesa Natural yesterday.
Yeah.
No, nothing more I can find.
All right. Well, Mama needs to pull it, and then I'll.
Okay.
There was a couple guys on last night that were wanting to buy some more of it, so we'll let them have what's left. But boy, that was a really unique coffee profiles. What we do with coffee is there's a lot of different ways to process coffee, but we've picked 3. And so it's a canal wash, a red honey, and then a full natural. With the Perinema that I'm drinking right now, 3 years in a row, we tried processing some natural. And 3 years in a row, it was like 81, 82. It just sort of a plain, it just didn't pop or didn't do anything really spectacular. So I just quit. So that coffee, we're not going to fool with. The same thing with the Bourbon variety we have. It doesn't pop. The Catuai doesn't pop in the natural. So we just gave up on it. So last year was our first year with a Marciesa. So I did, I know that I was going to do, I had a test slot of it the year before. So we did it honey process and wash. So I knew those did pretty good. And they were both 85s. So I did a couple 100 pounds of it in the natural, full natural. And so the Marciesa, there's a lot online called M2N. So that means Marciesa Lot 2 Natural is what that stands for. And it came out, it was mango and ripe fruit were the flavor profiles on it. And I think it cupped an 88. So, but the natural takes twice as much patio space, no, 3 times more patio space, twice the labor, and it's 10 times more likely to ruin rather than be good. So we don't do natural unless the weather is just perfect, and then we'll do, because it takes a lot longer to dry. It's like 3 weeks to dry it, and then it's really difficult to test it with the moisture tester because you have to go in and dehull the coffee before you can put it in the moisture tester, and that ruins the coffee because then you can't age it, and so it's just a really difficult coffee. So we don't fool with it unless the weather's perfect. So this year we tried the Marciesa with some natural, and it worked out really good. Mango is definitely not one of my favorite fruits, but when I did it as a straight shot in my espresso machine, it was really good. And then I came back an hour or two later and finished off a little tiny cup. I just drank that last little bit cold, and the mango really came out uh, when I drank it cold. And so it was an espresso shot that I let get cold, and you could really taste the mango in it. So next year we're going to try to process quite a bit. But this year in the naturals, I've got 3 different lots of Limpira. I've got some Sargimore, and I've got an Ika 2 that we all processed a full natural. So we've got so many lots, we're going to put one on every month. Otherwise, it's really difficult to have too many coffees online all at the same time. But if you guys ever want to try something different, I'll send you a list of like everything we have. And I don't mind opening up a bag, running out to the shop and opening up a bag. But to keep all that in the roastery where we ship from is really 6 bags of natural and 8 bags of honey, all open all at the same time. So we generally have a cup. Right now, I think we have 8 options online. And so we're going to pull the Marciesa Natural tonight. So when I get back next week, we'll probably put on the Ika 2 Natural or something like that. So I like to have 2 wash, 2 honeys, and a natural online. And then this year we're going to pick about 20 home roasters, and that'll sort of be what we go with while we're here in country. From January to April, we pull a lot of the coffees offline because all I have is a girl that comes in like 2 days a week and packs orders. And so and until we know what our production is going to be about mid-February, the only way we make a living is by selling roasted coffee. And so if I put too much green online and I sell out, then I literally won't have enough money, at the end of the year. And this coffee season is sort of over in June. That's when the coffee is all picked, dried, and selected. So between June and August is a dry spell where we don't have a lot of coffee to sell. We have to sort of ration it a little bit. But I have a lot this year that has is a lot of Perinema. I'm pretty sure it's a washed lot. And it had passion fruit, and another lot had pink grapefruit as the flavor profiles.
Wow.
And I haven't tried either one of those coffees yet. And so when I get back, I'm hoping to roast a little bit of those in my sample roaster.
Do any of you like that sort of flavor profile in espresso or no?
Well, I haven't tried those 2 coffees. I
Okay.
cupped them, but when I cupped them, I didn't really know what I was looking for. And I'm not a good enough cupper to like see the passion fruit where,
Okay.
the guy who's a professional that makes his living doing it. He picks those out, and so I'm looking forward to seeing if I can hit the exact right roast level to get it to where I can see those. And then I got to try to figure out how to once you figure out how to roast it, then you got to figure out how to brew it. What's the best way to brew it.
Right.
But what I do is on the cupping table is I basically put all the coffees on the cupping table and we just cup them. The first round is to make sure nothing has gone bad. We had a lot. It turned out to be 187 pounds, and it was a lot of Ika 2 natural. And I knew it was ruined when I tasted it. Well, I didn't even taste it. I smelled it. I'm like, I'm not even going to try this. So then we pulled that lot, and that next morning we sent it to the cupper. And as a joke, he's a pretty funny guy, but as a joke, he scored it a 30. And so, yeah, and cupping starts at 50. So if it comes to the door and it looks like coffee, you get a 50. And from that, you build on to get up to your 80s and 90s. And so as a joke, he scored it a 30. And then my flavor profiles were metal and chemical. He actually said pharmaceutical. It was pharmaceutical. So he said it tastes like medicine and metal. Those are my flavor profiles. And goes to show that those naturals are really picky.
Yeah.
But he's really good at picking those things out. So then we do a more once we make sure everything's okay, then I'll bring Julia in and I'll try to get a couple other guys that I cup with sometimes, get those guys in, and we'll sit and try to see what we're picking, what flavors we all find that we agree on. So we all do it on Post-it notes with the goal of we separate the lots. Generally, your washed Lempira is always going to be a chocolate base with caramel. It's pretty predictable. If you roast it right, you'll get a nutty finish, something like that on it. So then we try to, once we send it, we try to give it a basic cupping so we know, hey, we got a couple 82s this year. We'll have to deal with that. Just pray they're not big lots. Then we try to, main thing is try to see how many really good coffees we've got. And then once we send it to the cupper, he cups every single coffee. So this year there was like 60 different cuppings that he did. And then I lay all those out. And if it's within a quarter point of each other, we'll put them together. As long as the flavor profiles match and they're a quarter point, we could put them together. Otherwise, you've got a whole bunch of different coffees. And so you've got there was 5 different lots of Perinema this year. The Lempira, I think there was 26 lots of Lempira because a lot of days we'll pick it and then we'll split the lot in half. We'll process half of it washed, half of it honey. So it's really difficult to keep track of it, first of all. But then when it comes cupping season, it's really, you have to really keep up with your paperwork. And then once it's cupped and you start trying to figure out what lots could be combined and what lots couldn't. I had 2 coffees this year. They had the same flavor profiles and they had the same cupping score, but one of them was honey and one of them was washed. You can't mix those 2 together because they roast differently. And so you would end up with what we call it a Dunkin' Donuts blend. They have that lighter and darker roast mixed together, but they do that after they roast it. So if you were to roast those together, you would have 2 separate first cracks.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to separate those 2 lots, because the red honey is going to have a thicker silver skin, and then the full natural is going to have an even thicker silver skin. So there's just a whole lot of difference in those. The only thing we mix together is the pea berries on the Lempira. There's too many lots not to. And then I personally roast those and just sell them as a pea berry online. And everybody seems pretty happy with them. But yeah, that lot will actually, we separate the naturals out, but it'll be a mix of washed and honey. And then I just roast them together.
Can you explain, the different processes. How do you process them? Washed honey process. I'm familiar with natural the most, but the washed is canal washed or just washed the same thing? And then honey process, how is that different? Eli wants to chime in.
Most of your washed coffees are machine washed. And so
Okay.
it goes into the machine called the depulper, and it takes the cherry off. And as it leaves the machine, it goes through a spindle very similar to a cotton picker. And it's just these revolving spindles, but they have real blunt ends on them. And they just throw the coffee bean around while it injects high pressure water, and it cleans all that mucilage off of it. And when it comes out the bottom of the machine, it's squeaky clean. I mean, literally, you squeeze that bean and you've got a squeak. That's a
Wow.
machine washed coffee versus a canal washed. We literally have these long canals that are we ceramic tiled the canals, and the coffee gets depulped and goes into that canal uh, with no water, and we let it ferment overnight, up to 36 hours, and then we divert. There's a river we've diverted to come through the farm, and then we fill that canal up, and the women go down through it with wooden rakes and wash the mucilage off. And so in that little canal, we have boards, and so we start washing that coffee. And as it fills up, the coffee that's bad floats, the mucilage floats, and so all that goes over that top board. And then we take the one. They're all 1x4s, so we start pulling the boards out. It lets the water off. Then we let it set a couple hours, and the rest of the water drains out under the bottom board. And so then they have to get in there with scoops and scoop all that coffee into a bag, and then they put it on the patio and start drying it. Now, that's a hand washed coffee or a canal washed coffee. They're both exactly the same. They just have two different names. The red honey is a nickname. Um, so that coffee gets, we ferment it ahead of time in the cherry, and then it runs through the machine and takes the cherry off of it. It goes down a chute straight into the patio, and it dries in its own juices. With the red honey processed Lempira, after about 3 days, you can pick it up and eat it, and it tastes like peach marmalade. It smells like peach marmalade, but it dries in its own juices. And so, the cherry that you pull off of it is a fruit, and it's just like a grape. And in Spanish, we call it uva, which is grape. And so it dries in its own juice and its own mucilage. So that's where it picks up those fruit flavors from. But after a couple of days, it starts to turn red, and it's sticky and really sweet. And so they gave it the nickname red honey. And so that's your red honey processed. Now, when you buy a coffee and it says natural, and that's all it says, more than likely that's a pulped natural. And what they do is once the coffee gets picked, they throw it into a tank for about 3 or 4 days, and it just sits in the cherry. And that's a natural process of drying coffee natural. But we let it sit in that cherry for 26 days. Well, what they do is they let it sit in there about 3 or 4 or 5 days. Then they fill the tank with water, and it hydrates it again. And then they run it through a pulper and wash it. And so that's called a pulped natural. So basically, it's a hard fermented washed coffee is what I would say it was. But the technical definition is pulped natural. So if they just slap natural on there, you can pretty much bet that's what it is. Versus if you buy a coffee that says full natural, that means that coffee was picked, put into a tank, floated to get the bad coffee out, the tank drained, and the patio. And then instead of being moved around with rakes, it's moved with giant spatulas, and it's just gently flipped 30, 40 times a day so that you will dry it evenly. I've got bundles of bananas hanging, and one of them just fell down. Uh, and so they gently move it so that it evenly dries, because gravity is going to dictate that the juice goes to the bottom and then leaks out. So you want to keep turning it so that that bean soaks as much juice as possible into it. So when you finally depulp that bean, it's going to have a reddish tint to it instead of that greenish tint that green coffee has. And so that's called a full natural. And the reason that we don't do so much of it is because while it's in that grape, it's just like a grape. You can ferment a grape and make it into wine. But if you don't do it correctly, then it tries to make alcohols and things like that and become a wine. If you're not giving it what sugar and yeast or whatever you do to wine, then it'll over ferment and you'll get the pharmaceutical, chemical, metal taste, and it'll ruin it. And so that's why our naturals sell for so much more than the wash coffees do, is because it takes about 3 times longer to dry it, 3 times more patio space, twice the labor, and 10 times more likely to go bad. And so that's my least favorite coffee to drink. Is my wife's favorite coffee, but it's one of the most popular coffees that we have and sell. And last year the weather was bad last year, so we didn't process any natural last year. But because we age our coffee, there was an article I read about aging coffee. If you age coffee under perfect days, you will extend the shelf life once it's green without losing more than, say, a half a point to a point a year, that first year on the cupping score. And so that's why our coffee ships later than a lot of people's, is because we age the coffee 90 days before we start processing it. So it's 90 days after it's hit that 12.5% humidity. Once that happens, then we take it into the bodega, open the sacks, let them breathe for 3 days. We probe it, make sure the temperature is the same on the center as it is on the outside. And then we shut the bag up. We put it in the stack. 30 days, we take all the coffee out, rotate it, put it back in. In 30 days, we pull it out, rotate it. And so we have a line. So when we pull that top bag out, it goes to the very end of the line. And then we start putting it back in. It goes back in first, so it's on the bottom of the stack. And then the second time we do it, we reverse it. And the third time we do it, we start picking coffee from the center of the line. Then we pick one bag here and one bag here, one bag here. And that way the coffee that was on the top and the bottom starts getting put in the center, and we sort of stack it that way. So it's a process of trying to, because the top of the bodega is hotter than the bottom of the bodega. So we have to keep that rotation in. I'm going to ask Mr. Richard if he wants to come on screen.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I've heard bits and pieces. Kind of, it's good to have kind of that overview. It's hard to explain when somebody asks who doesn't know anything about coffee, all the details of the process, because it's so diverse. And
Well, I've got the descriptions online, but they may not be that detailed. I've thought about, I'm working on a little flyer that I'm going to start putting in every so often. Because when you buy green coffee, sometimes I throw the dollar bill and a more of a description in there with so that you can give to your customers and even friends and family. If you don't sell your coffee, it's something interesting. And if they're interested in coffee enough to be buying specialty grade coffee and paying a premium price for it, then they're probably interested enough to want to do all that.
I'm sitting outside and the mosquitoes are coming out, starting to eat me up. Do you got bugs down there?
Well, normally we don't have mosquitoes here. We're at a little more than 5,000 feet.
Sure.
And so normally they don't bother us. We have some little insects and crap, but nothing like mosquitoes. But a tropical storm, I think it was Richard, you were telling me there was some kind of tropical storm. So this morning, mosquitoes started coming in. And when there's a tropical storm, it actually blows those mosquitoes in here. But they can't live that long because it gets too cool and they die. So we'll have mosquitoes every once in a while for a couple of days. So today is Sunday. I decided I'm not going to do anything today. I've drank so much coffee today, I don't know what to do. And so I came out here after lunch. I drove to town just for the sole purpose of looking for coffee cups, and I got 4 different coffee sets of coffee cups today. Uh, and so I came back. I put on my shorts. I had me a thing of bimbo bread. Jose knows what the bimbo bread is, and I stole the dental chair. We have a mobile dental chair, which is basically what what Billy lays out and suntans in every day. But that thing will lay back, and so I'm laid back watching Stargate Atlantica, some kind of really informational show, and I looked down, and there was this big fat mosquito just sucking on my leg. And I'm like, well, crap! Now I got to put my coffee cup down and try to kill this thing. So, but we very seldom have trouble with a lot of insects.
Yeah.
Right now, it's probably 65 degrees outside. The storm's coming in. Uh, I wish, and if some of you guys know how, I guess I just need to get a different camera. Uh, Billy sent me a camera, but I haven't used it yet. But the view behind me is so amazing, but I can never get it to show that little bit of tint. Let me try to get my finger in the right place. There's like a first layer of blue. All that's another mountain range behind. And in that first layer of white clouds right here, I can see another mountain range behind that. It's just an incredible view that the camera doesn't pick up. And that's one of the reasons why I try to do a podcast every night. And every once in a while, you see the lightning. You can see it getting bright there. It's not close enough. I can hear it yet. But I can look around the corner here, and I can see a storm fixing to come around the corner. Because one of these hills, this hill right here is pretty close to me. And so right in here, I can see a storm starting to come around the corner. So it'll be raining here in probably half an hour, something like that. But I got a tin roof on the house, and I raised my bed up last night so that I actually see out the window. So last night, I mean, I have to have a box to step on to hop into bed. But last night it was storming, and so I went to bed just watching the storm last night, and just looking right out at this same view that y'all see behind me. That's I've been gone 90 days almost to the date, and I thoroughly miss this place when I'm gone. Uh, right off my left shoulder is the eucalyptus tree where when I got COVID, I told the workers, I want you to bury me right there. I said, go ahead and bury me and then call Julia. And I said, I don't want everybody flying out here. And I can only imagine what it'd cost to ship my carcass back to the States. So I told them, don't come near the house. I said, because I've got COVID. I said, man, I feel like I've been run over by a truck. And I said, just check on me, give me a call. But I slept for like 20 hours straight. I just got up one night and I was sick, and I went in the kitchen and I got a bunch of food and put it in bed with me and ate supper. And I woke up the next afternoon. They were leaving for work. And I saw I had some missed calls, but they called. I didn't answer it, so they just left. And I guess they figured they'd check on me the next day or something. But I told them, I said, bury me by the eucalyptus tree, because that's where Eli buried his chicken when it died. So they just bury me there. But I am 99. If I die in Honduras, this is where I'm going to be buried, right here. So when I'm going to wheel the farm to Jose and Billy, they can fight over it. And so now there's the farm next to me, and that guy's wanting $10,000 an acre. If I had the money, I would buy it. If I was a rich man, I would buy it. But maybe Billy or Jose will buy it, and we can be neighbors. It's got a nice adobe house. I wish I had built an adobe house instead of this block house. They have such character. Houses look, and I mean, the adobe blocks are usually about 12 inches thick, so they're really well insulated, and so it would have been a cool thing to have, but I didn't do that. But I guess they fall down after a period of time, so I'm not sure if that works for me or not. But no, Jose is in Seguin, Texas. Jose is actually flown out to the farm, and his wife came out and stayed for a while. We've got a little apartment, and we broke ground today on what's going to be the children's classroom on Sunday. But I'm building a bathroom and a kitchenette in it, so for when people come, they'll be able to stay in that too. I've got a couple groups scheduled this year for July. So I've got a group I think coming the first week. It's like a dozen guys from Oregon, and then I've got the original group that I came to Honduras with the first time in 1998. They're coming, but they haven't decided what month. So I'm hoping they're going to build a third building that will be used for an apartment. That's what I'm hoping they'll do for their project. But Sundays are so many kids. I came today a half an hour after church, and there were still 20 kids hanging out just playing. So I don't know how many kids showed up today, but the church is growing pretty good. I asked the preacher today, I said, what can we do to have get more people and all that? And he says, no, we got plenty of people. And so right now he doesn't have enough. He's not big enough to have deacons and elders, but right now he doesn't have enough people that can help him teach the classes and things like that for it to get much bigger. So he said he needs more time for the people to study and stuff like that before they could start, teaching a class or something like that. So I guess we're growing at his speed. When he's ready for us to have more people, we'll have more people. But thank God I was not called to preach. So that's not my concern. So we'll let Jose. Jose speaks really good Spanish. We're going to let him preach next time he comes out. If he'll ever quit his government job and start roasting coffee full time.
I'm working on it. I got to get this ambulance on the road by December.
Well, I think you'll do it. Now you've got me motivated. I've got that cab over truck. I think it's got a 14-foot bed or box on it. And it's 8 foot wide or right at 8 foot wide. So I really think that sucker would make a pretty good coffee shop. And my wife has said that she'll help me with it. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to let Brad and Jose, I'm going to let y'all talk because I got to go to the bathroom real quick because I've had 4 cups of coffee in the last 40 minutes. So you guys find something in common real quick. Watch the light.
So how long have you been roasting, Jose?
I think we started around 2019. We came back from a trip overseas and nothing measured up. So a lady from church gave us a little electric 4-ounce countertop roaster. And we started roasting with that, and then wasn't getting me anywhere. So when my dad died, my mom wanted to go to places where he had been in the military in the 50s, and so we went to Italy and Greece. And after that trip, the coffee was just a priority. Like I gotta roast some coffee. Hang on one second, man. I gotta drop this this batch.
Go for it. Yep. We don't want that to burn.
No.
Perfect time.
Save the coffee.
I went and picked me a couple bananas.
Oh,
look at these little guys right here.
Oh,
they're like little tiny bananas.
That's awesome.
I forget what he called them, but there's little ones. We've got a couple different. I think we got like 5 different varieties. We mainly use the bananas in our organic compost. They've got a certain amount of potassium in them, and they've got a lot of good moisture, stuff like that. So we'll pick 12,000 pounds of bananas. They'll cut them into, once they're ripe, and they'll cut them into small pieces. And we have a big lake where we throw once the coffee is depulped. So that cherry that we make the coffee cherry tea out of, that cherry that the coffee grows in, once it's processed, it goes underground and then comes out on the other side of the mill into this big lake. One side of the lake is built out of just these giant boulders. And so that lets the water filter out. so that coffee will settle down. And then we'll cover it with the leaf off the caliandra, about 3 inches of chicken poop, and then we put about 6 inches of bananas. And then every 30 days they turn it, and then at some point it'll start drying, and they'll start going in and taking that top layer of dry off, bagging it, and put it down into a building that we have, and they call it the Bodega Organico. So it's the organic warehouse. And so then once it's all dry and the lake is empty, then they go in and they'll dig out about a foot of the dirt. And then we take that dirt up on top of the hill and mix it with regular dirt because it's so strong. And then that's what we'll plant the seeds in when it's time. And then if we have a project going, then we'll bring dead dirt out, just plain old dirt, and throw it into the lake, pack it down. And then the next year's crop comes in and rejuvenates that dead dirt. And so that's the goal. So I have about 2,500 banana plants on the farm. So we've got minimals, ballets, nakitans. We have one banana that's red. Then we've got the plantains that you cook. And then we've got these little guys here, and I forget what they're called. But they're really good bananas. And just like coffee, the ballets are sort of fair, but the one that's called minimals, those are really good bananas. And that's what ships to the States. A bundle of bananas has to weigh 55 pounds before they'll buy it. So that's going to be about 100 green bananas. And I get $1.35.
Wow.
I give half to the workers. So we do a contract. They go and cut it. It takes 2 to 3 guys to cut one bundle of bananas. These guys are masters with the machete. So he'll reach up as high as he can. And at a 45-degree angle, he'll cut that coffee tree. Some of them are 30 feet tall. And so that trunk will just slide off that 45 and hit the ground. The second it hits the ground, he cuts it again. And that second one hits, the other guy reaches up and cuts the bundle of bananas loose, and the third guy grabs it.
Wow.
And that way, because all around those banana trees are our coffee. And if you just cut the banana tree, it's going to crack down and kill a coffee plant. And that coffee plant, we spent 3 or 4 years getting it mature. And so it's really hard to control the bananas and to take good care of them. But that banana tree itself is just so full of water. And then they just leave it on the ground and it just drains all that water out, and then it just decomposes over the next year. And so they just leave it where it sits. But a couple days before I come to Honduras, I always get a message to Bahidio. He's my farm boss, my guide out on the farm. And he'll pick me a bundle of ripe bananas and then a bundle of green bananas. So right now, there's 2 bundles of bananas. I'll be able to, about Wednesday, I'll be able to start eating the big bananas that are out there. Mr. Richard said he wasn't dressed for the video. The other night I did mine in shorts, so I had to make sure I didn't stand up around anybody. But I asked him if he wanted to come on. I think he's been on before. I've done it. I think I couldn't get the number 30 off. I forgot how to change that. So last night's episode was 30 and tonight's episode is 30. But I guess I've done about 30 episodes. Last night,
before you enter you know how when you first log on and it shows you the page before you hit enter studio?
Yeah.
Before you do that, you can change your name right there.
Well, I think what the problem was, I scheduled a couple of them. I scheduled like a Saturday one, a Sunday one, and I forgot to change the name. And so tonight, excuse me, tonight when I was getting ready, I noticed it was the same number. And so I forgot how to go in and like edit that number. But I've been fairly good. I need to keep a book or something about uh, exactly what episode is what. But I've done pretty good, I think. I think there was 221s. But so I've done about 30 podcasts, and a couple of them were while we were traveling, so they were shorter. But I don't know if I ever put the podcast that you and I did together. We did that one on your stream. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that went out onto mine or not. When you and I
I
did it,
think
Jose and the caboose.
I think we did it to where it recorded. It should have recorded on both of them, but if not, I can send you I sent you the recording.
Okay, I'll have to look and see because
Yeah.
I forget as much as I remember nowadays.
Well, listen, I'm gonna go smoke this stick while that machine cools down, and then I got to go inside, take a shower, and go do my regular job tomorrow.
What time have you got to go to work?
Well, I got to be there at 7 now instead of 3 o'clock in the morning, so that's a big help. But
So is that your regular schedule now, or is that just sort of what it is for the next month?
7 to 3:30 Monday through Friday until I quit that job.
Okay, well, that's sort of what you
So
wanted, isn't it?
yeah, so the plan is, well, it's not. I'm not on the team I wanted to be on. They're taking me off my team.
Oh, okay.
But I've been told that I'm going to get farmed back out to them, which I already told them I wasn't going to do. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. There's a lot of junk going on there. I'm sick and tired of the federal government and how they work, and all the contracting companies that think they can do whatever they want. So I'm going to do whatever I want.
There
And
you
if they
go.
fire me, I'll go get a lawyer. I got a book that thick with all kinds of good stuff in it, and I'll get paid. And then I really I'll go buy 5 more ambulances. So you know I'm just talking a lot of trash, Ashley, because you know me by now. You know I just shut my mouth and keep walking, but it sounds
I
good.
like the idea of the multiple ambulances because that would be pretty cool to have.
Yeah.
Jose's
So
fixing to do an emergency coffee vehicle,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
cool.
and so he bought an
I think I
ambulance.
have.
So
I
yeah,
think I can show you. Let's see.
Portable coffee shop, huh?
Yes, but I'm gonna call it an emergency caffeine vehicle.
emergency caffeine.
I'm migrating away from the mosquitoes and to where there's a little more light. Because Wisconsin state bird is the mosquito.
The mosquito.
Yep, that's the joke. They're terrible. I can end up with 20 mosquito bites in an evening easily if I'm not careful.
That's why I put on my long sleeve shirt.
Ugh.
Figured to make them a little harder to get to me.
We'll go here away from everybody. Well, this has been fun. Oh, I saw a roaster suggested in the chat. I'm gonna have to look that up
What is it now?
in the chat on here. A 5-pound drum roaster for $350 on Etsy. I said I'm gonna have to look that up.
Oh, on that chat. I was looking on mine. I'm like, well, maybe
Yeah,
you're
no.
seeing more. You're seeing something I don't see.
Oh,
Okay, can you see the ambulance?
Let me click on it. No, it looks like there's a window in the window. That's
Yeah,
covering
you have
it
like
up.
Okay, let me.
infinity windows showing.
Yeah.
So do you have while he's doing that, Ashley, do you have a favorite profile? What's your taste when you have coffee that your favorite?
It changes from time to time. Used to, when we first started doing coffee, the Lempira Red Honey, that was a little bit harder fermented. Sometimes I'll go 2 days, fermented an extra day. And it gives it, like Have you got one of the charts that shows you your flavor palettes on your tongue?
I don't think so.
So the back parts of your tongue here are sour. They perceive the
Okay.
sours more. So if you'll concentrate, close your eyes, and just think lemon, orange, tangy. If you really concentrate, it'll start exciting those taste buds. I can sort of feel them tingling a little bit. Where
Hmm.
you've got sour, you've got sweets, you've got bitter, there's different parts of your tongue. So that's why you slurp that coffee. You want to aerate it and you want to cover your entire tongue so that you can perceive all those flavors. So when I hard ferment that red honey Limpira, uh, Limpira is slightly more acidic than your normal coffees, and so when I hard ferment it, it would give me a little bit of a perception of wine on the
Hmm.
back, and so I really like that. And so that was my favorite coffee for a long time until the first year I had my yellow Katui in production, and then all of a sudden there's a coffee that's citrus, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so then I'm like, well, crap, I got a new favorite, And the reason I planted the yellow Katui is because I had it in one of my first cuppings and really liked it. But
Okay.
and so then I liked that, but I didn't have much in production. So my favorite go-to coffee was that red honey, and then my first year of production of the Perinema, and then the Marsellesa. But right now, it would bounce between the red honey processed Marsellesa and the canal washed Perinema. Those are my two, and that's what I'm drinking right now. Is the canal washed Perinema.
Hmm.
It's
Uh,
let me. I think the one I'm drinking right now is actually last year's crop. It's not the current crop. The
okay.
current crop, though, it's got crazy profiles, and I should have that list in front of me, but there's just so many unique profiles. So pretty quick, I'm going to put the one that's got passion fruit online, just so everybody can start trying it. And it's an 88 point. Um, but I've got a couple of the Perinamas that are honey, and a couple that are washed, and a couple of the Marchesas honey and washed. So we'll have, definitely have a very eclectic coffee
I'm
selection
gonna
this
have
year.
to order some of that to try their name red honey.
The
I just
red
ordered.
honey Eka 2, it's like I5M, I think is what it's called, is online now.
Okay.
It's a really fruity coffee. I've enjoyed that. But
I like really fruity pour overs, but I like really chocolatey espresso.
well,
So depending on what, yeah.
I've got a full natural this year, and the cupping was sort of plain on it. But when I tried it, I liked it because it was chocolate caramel, and it seems like it
Hmm.
sort of works. Even
I
though
think
I was hoping to get fruity and some kind of pop or something, but as a full natural, it's a little more acidic, and the chocolate was really dominant, and it had a really nice caramel finish to it, and so it seemed to work. And so it'll be online here pretty soon. Or if you'll
okay.
PM me, I might have a bag of a couple of things that are open. I'll be back next Saturday. It's a pretty short trip, so I'll be back
Okay.
next Saturday. It'll be late Saturday, but I can get you, a couple different things.
This Lempira, the canal washed, I just ordered. I love how that pull shots for espresso.
Yeah,
Do like a medium roast. I don't know, from first crack, I go a minute 45 to 2 minutes from first crack and end around or 430 degrees, 435. I don't, it's so smooth and I love it. That
I,
chocolatey caramel taste.
I've got a couple of coffee shops that carry my coffee, and that's the one I recommend for your just everyday espresso. Just back to back. It's really a forgiving coffee when you roast it,
Yeah.
and but it just really works well as an espresso. It's not too acidic. It's very
Hmm.
the Canal Wash Limpira is my lowest acid coffee that I have, and so it
Okay.
works really well for that. Uh, but the other thing I like in my espresso is is the full natural Lempira. It's a
Okay.
little more acidic, but it's definitely got that fruit punch to it. And last year's lot 26, everybody started nicknaming it the fruit bomb. And it's just, I've held back a bag of it, and I've purposely regulated how much it was. Because last year I decided, well, I have to decide how much I can sell roasted because that's what supports the farm. And so I said, well, I'm going to put 300 pounds online, and I think we had it for $8.50 a pound. And I said, well, and normally it's not that expensive. So I said, I want to offer it because a lot of people are asking for it. I can't sell everything that I have, so I had to weigh that out. So I said, well, I'm going to raise the price a little bit. And some guy just kept hitting 6 pounds, 6 pounds, 6 pounds. And one guy bought 240 pounds of it. But the computer didn't read it as pounds. They read those buys as pounds. And so every time he ordered 6 pounds, it just showed up as 1 pound in my inventory. So then we oversold the coffee because everybody else was buying too. So I only had 300 online. So they ended up getting most of my natural last year.
Oh.
And so then I had to take it completely offline. This year, I've literally got a ton of natural. We produced 2,400 pounds of green coffee. But I put my Marsellesa online, and it had a cupping note of mango and ripe fruit. So that mango is a little bit of a twangy, but then the ripe fruit was a sweet, and they just worked well together. I didn't think they would, and it worked really well together. And so, but it just is sold like crazy, and we're down to our last bag already. And so Julia's pulling it tonight. I think there's about 12 pounds left. Hey, Brad, where do you have to go to? Barry might get online. Where do you have to click to ask to get online? I'm not sure how to do that. What did you have to do to get on the screen?
I clicked on the link that you sent me, and it took me straight to the website and a mic test, and okayed that, and then it brought me here. I think you had to okay it to bring me on screen live, but
All right, Barry, I'm sending you the current link.
yeah, that worked good.
So, Barry, if you'll click on that link.
It doesn't work in Facebook Messenger. You have to open it in your browser.
Did you hear that, Barry? And Richard, I'm going to go ahead and so I can't send that messenger.
You can. You just have to, when you click on it, it opens in Messenger, and then you have to hit the little, I don't remember what the button is in the bottom right, and then choose to open link in browser, and then it goes to your browser.
All right, Richard, I just sent you one. So I sent Richard and Barry both one. I'm not very technical. There's been a couple times I've been here in Honduras, and I have to call Jose in Texas, and he has helped me fix my artisan online, and he has helped me do quite a few things online.
There's
and I
Barry.
know I've monopolized his time a lot. Well, Barry, I don't know if you and I have ever talked face to face.
No, it's the first time, man.
We've emailed each other a bunch of times.
Absolutely.
And I was saying last night, Barry has got the most creative labels of anybody.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I love the astronaut one, and I love some of your sayings and things like that. So I really enjoyed watching you grow your company and stuff. And maybe I'll be you when I grow up.
Yeah, it's been a pretty cool, definitely an awesome journey so far. Just roasting and doing everything and just meeting all the great people. For me, I'm a musician and a creative and an artist. So for me, my whole thing is like, oh, let me see if I can do something that's creative, and let me hook up with other artists in my area and kind of blend the two together. So. But it's been great. I'm doing something right now for Halloween. I'm doing coffee in these little skull mason jars right here. And I'm calling it Demon Brewing,
Oh no.
which is after the street name Demumbrian here in Nashville. But every tourist that comes to Nashville, when they go down Demumbrian, they always say, "Oh, what, can you tell me how to get to Demon Brewing?" So it's like it's a joke that we say around here. But yeah, I turned it into a coffee, and I've been getting a lot of orders, and it's been a lot of fun. I actually made like a little social media ad for it too. I got a friend of mine. We dressed him up like a zombie, and I filmed him waking up, getting out of his bed, and pouring some Demon Brewing coffee. And I made it all like 80s B movie, kind of like just retro TV style. But I've been getting it's been getting a great response out of it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Now, do you sell online?
So right now, it's all just word of mouth. I just have people just DM me, message me. People usually just go to my either my Instagram or my Facebook, and I have people just DM me. I don't have like a Etsy shop or a website yet. I will eventually. I do have the domain name, but as of right now, it's just word of mouth, meeting up with people, meeting up with locals. I just get a lot of phone calls. So, but it's been fun. Can't wait to see where it goes.
Now, are you on a B more, or how do you roast?
Just to be more. That's all I have right now.
Kerry Sanders has has an artisan now, but he had a couple of B mores at one time.
Yeah,
he's somewhere around Murfreesboro. We talked about it last night.
Yes. Yeah, I would like to get in contact with him. Maybe speak with him, and maybe I don't know, get some pointers.
Yeah, he's a super nice guy. And now, do they have cottage law? Did we talk about that last night? Or
yeah, in Tennessee they have cottage law.
Okay,
correct.
Because I'm actually from Alamo, Tennessee. I moved from Alamo to Kansas, and then Kansas to Honduras.
I think you were telling me that.
And I went to Nashville Auto Diesel College right out of high school. And so I used to work at Printer's Alley. That's what my night job while I was going to diesel college.
That's awesome.
It didn't take long to learn that I didn't want to be a diesel mechanic. So I like the cars and I like the cars. But the first day of school, they said, if you're here to learn how to work on race cars, you're in the wrong place. And so I was like, well, crap. So, but if you can work on one, you can work on all of them. So, but no, and then a couple of years ago, I was teaching over in Franklin. It was a place called Saber Tactical. He did advanced gun training, and so I taught there a couple of days a month. I would drive up to Franklin and teach. He lived right next to like Amy Grant was right one of his neighbors.
Oh wow!
She got upset a couple of times when we were shooting too much out there. And, see, I was in a nice part. When I was going there, there were all these big houses with a garage for a tour bus beside of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was quite a few people out there. Franklin's just a really beautiful place.
Yeah, beautiful area for sure.
And then I would go eat supper at the Mellow Mushroom.
Yep.
Oh
right
man,
down over there. Place. Yep.
Yeah, I love that place. I can hear the rain coming.
Yep, here it comes.
Yep.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, Richard.
What do you roast on, Richard?
Right now I'm using the SR 540, but I do use the 800 chamber on it instead of the 540 chamber.
Okay.
It actually works out pretty good. I didn't know if it would or not, but it works out pretty good.
Yeah. I have 800 with kind of a Frankenstein roast chamber that I put together. It's
if it works, it works, man.
Yeah. Whatever I could do to increase my roast size.
I'm mainly just roasting for me and my wife and a few family members. I'm not really selling anything right this minute. Well, occasionally some friends will want to buy some, but other than that, 222 to 225 grams seem to work out fine for us.
That's good.
But I do find myself roasting 3 to 4 batches at a time because I'm one of those that likes a few different flavors around the house.
For sure.
Variety.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm getting 250 to 300 depending on the bean density and the humidity in the in the ambient temperature and humidity. But that's cool. And we basically just roast for ourselves as well. I've started roasting some for church, like fellowships on Sunday morning. I bring coffee and share that. So we do about 45 cups in a percolator
Nice.
every Sunday morning.
45 cups in a percolator?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of coffee.
It's been gone. It's always gone.
That means everybody liked it.
Yeah, it's fun. Something different. And I just did an order of the Lempira Canal washed. Everybody seems to really love it. I might do some more of something different just for some variety.
Right on.
And we go through about a pound a week at home, mostly with espresso. Do a lot of vanilla oat milk lattes.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Mine's usually either just straight up or with a little bit of cream and sugar. That's about it.
Yeah.
I don't add a lot of extras. Now, sometimes the wife, she gets a little wild with it, and adds a little extra here and there, but we keep a few syrups around.
There you go.
My wife doesn't eat a whole lot of sugar, so we're making vanilla syrup with xylitol from scratch.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't drink any dairy, so oat milk has been the go-to, and everybody who we serve seems to absolutely love it.
I tried the oat milk. I'm just not a big fan of it in my coffee as much.
No. It depends on the brand and what you get, because we found there have been a couple oat milks we've got that aren't good.
Yeah.
But if I'm trying to Oatly, the heavy fat Oatly brand, it froths like milk does. I can texture it to double the volume. So if you start with half of a pitcher, in your froth pitcher, I can end
in a
up
frother?
Yeah, in the frother and with a steam wand, it'll double the volume and overflow and be foamy and creamy and.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'd be all right.
It's very much like a whole milk, thick and heavy, creamy tasting, and it. So yeah, that with a little vanilla sweetener and that Lempira espresso, it's got a nice chocolate vanilla flavor, delicious.
With a little coffee kick in the back end, huh?
That's right.
Yeah, we do double shots for a 10 to 12 ounce cup, and it's strong enough that you taste that smooth chocolatey flavor along with the creamy vanilla. It's really good.
Right on. I don't have an espresso maker right now. I bought something that I thought was an espresso maker. Yeah, it's just really, really dark coffee. That's all it really is.
Yeah.
Coffee.
We just got into espresso about 2 years ago, and that was dangerous because now it's like the main thing. We do either lattes or Americanos, and I hardly ever use the pour over anymore because I love a good Americano, iced or hot. That's for black coffee. It's so easy. Quick and easy, but we have a Gaggia Classic Pro, and that has been a workhorse for about $450.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. I actually looked into a few of them there for a while, and then I was like, not right now.
Yeah, I'm on that boat with you.
When you get it, you'll go through a lot more coffee.
Yeah, that's what everybody. That's what I've heard.
Well,
Like all the
have you
different
guys ever
forms.
tried the aerial press?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had that before we went to espresso.
Well, I sort of call that the poor man's espresso. And
I actually haven't ever tried an AeroPress.
I've got it. It's sort of in the background. I can't use. Yeah, not right
Yeah.
in there. I like it, and then I do a shot of that, and then make sort of an americano out of that. But a couple of years ago, I had a customer that, while I was delivering their coffee, they said, "Well, we don't have enough money to pay you," and then they said, "But we just upgraded our espresso machine. It's made in Italy. I forget what the name of it is."
La Marzocco.
No, it's not that nice.
Okay.
But, it's like one bag of coffee nice. But
Okay.
I traded them one bag of red honey Lupira for it, and it's set under the shelf because all the fittings were from Italy or whatever, and it took about 6 trips to Lowell's before I could get it hooked up. And so it sat there for a year. I tried fooling with it the first day, and I was like, well, I'm not going to worry about it. But then once I got it going, then I realized both the portafilters they gave me, neither one of them fit the machine. So then I had to start, because I love to trade for stuff. So then I found a guy that was getting rid of his portafilters and getting something else. So I traded him roasted coffee for his for a naked portafilter. And just the word naked in it, I knew I had to have it. And so I said, well, Eli, they got one that's a double spout and one that's a naked. And I said, I want the naked. And he said, I think you should get the naked. And so we got a naked portafilter, which it's cool to watch it, like shoot your camera up under it and watch it come out.
Yeah.
I want to get one. I don't have one yet.
I've been playing with it, and it's fun to play with. Right now I've got a seal that's going out, so it's leaking around, and it sort of makes a mess, but I still keep cranking them out, I just put a towel under it, and what doesn't go in the cup, I don't worry about.
Does that cause it to lose quite a bit of pressure?
Probably.
Probably.
But I don't know enough about it to know what I'm missing. So,
I just changed the seal in mine. It was pretty simple. From the one that came with it was rubber, and they were known to deteriorate, and put a silicone one in, and it was easy to do. And then I changed the shower head too right away. But I highly recommend the machine that I have, because we've pushed it really hard, and I haven't had to do anything to it. Back flush it once a week, and I always use like a third wave water. We don't use tap water in it, but we make our own third wave concoction. So we buy distilled water and then add the additive, and it makes really consistent good coffee, and you're not putting a lot of sediment in your machine then.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mine's been up and running about 2 years, but I haven't treated it well. I did buy the reverse osmosis water system, and so I've got to put it. But I haven't connected any of it yet. It's still in the box. I think I'm gonna bring that here, because the one I thought I was ordering, I wanted that light, the UV light, so and I ordered the wrong kit, I guess. So I'm gonna bring the one that I got here, and then I'll get the UV light and all that RO system. I'm gonna put that one at the house. I guess it makes a difference. I don't know. Again, I don't have enough experience knowing what I'm missing, but I feel like it'll make a big difference in having the right water filtered the right way and all that. But mine doesn't have an option where I could add the third wave water to it. Mine has just a pressurized line that you hook up to it.
Okay, this is. I wish I could turn the camera around. There's not really an option, but this doesn't have any lines going to it. The machine has a top. You add water. Yep, that's the only option. It's simple. It's a small, simple machine with a steam one. It's a single boiler, but it has a 58 millimeter portafilter, which is the commercial size. And sorry, I can't see where I'm pointing. but for the price, it's been an absolute workhorse.
Nice.
Very simple. Just plug it in. There's no hoses. Add the water in the top. You can see, take it apart. It's easy to clean.
Is that a virtuoso grinder?
Yes, it is the Virtuoso Plus. It's a mess. This is our coffee bar.
Okay. Nice.
Nice.
We've got you guys right here. Yes.
I put Christmas lights on mine to make it even happier.
Oh, and our the Fellows pitcher. This is a really nice gooseneck for pour overs, but
Does it have the thermostat inside of it? I saw one the other day that had a thermostat inside of it, but I didn't really see the need to.
I don't know. It reads here the temperature.
Okay. Mine, the one I have here in Honduras, is just a push button. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you just push it, and I guess it boils and then shuts off. But I think I've got the Virtuoso outside in the lab, and then I've got a Bun GH3 out in the lab. But then this one is the Encore.
Yeah.
Made by Barat. It's like the size smaller than the Virtuoso.
The Virtuoso is similar. The burrs are a little bit, I don't know, better. It's quieter, and I can grind finer. So this technically is not meant for espresso, but depending on my roast, I'm grinding at 0 right now.
Really?
And at 0, I level the bed with this guy, and then tamp it with a pressure or a, what do you call it? A calibrated,
nice.
calibrated tamper. And I get 20 with 17 grams right now. I get about a 27-second double shot, and I time my shots just for consistency to see, because when you change your roast, sometimes it affects timing and
for sure.
Yeah, you lost me at talking about the seconds on the shot, man.
Yeah, well, it changes so much. If I go from 17 to 17 and a half grams, my shot time can go to 30, 35 seconds. Like, espresso is so finicky, and that's why espresso grinders are so expensive. When you get into the fine grinding, your adjustment calibration is like minuscule. It changes just tiny amounts, and I can't adjust it that fine. So I'm grinding at 0, and the only way I can adjust my shots is by increasing the volume of coffee. That's really all you can adjust. Or if it's taking too long, I could bump it from 0 to 1. But sometimes I'll go just that one notch on this grinder can take me to like a 10-second double shot, which is way too fast, and it's sour then.
Oh yeah, no, you don't want that.
That's probably what happened when I tried to figure that out.
But when I went to barista school, they told us to do 20-20. Like every time you're trying a new coffee, put in 20 grams.
Okay.
And then start moving it around to try to perfect the coffee. But that was their starting point. And every student got to pick 2 things they wanted to try to get better at. And mine was the siphon, and then so I had a siphon rig here in Honduras, and then the espresso. I'd never done espresso, and so I wanted to do more than that. And so it was fun. It was a 6-day school I went to, and it was all in Spanish, which sucked a little bit. And so a lot of, like, I'd go do a shot, and then I'd bring it, and it was training baristas. So it was me and a bunch of 20-year-old baristas, and so I had to presentation was part of it. So I had to put it on a little platter, and I would bring it to him. And the first 7 or 8, he just like looked at it and said no, and then I'd have to go back and make another one, And then finally it got to where he would look at it, and then he would like do the crema.
Yeah.
And I did probably 20 shots before he'd ever even try one. And And then when he finally tried it, he liked it. I was doing my Limpira Natural because he let
Okay.
me bring my own coffee. Because the coffee shop we were training in, that guy has a farm too. And his coffee's way better than my coffee, or it used to be. He's never won Marcella, but it's just so you know that early in case you're watching. Uh, but So yeah, I wanted to try it. I was excited about the teacher trying my natural, and I do like 30 shots. I was about out of coffee by the time he finally would drink some of it. But no, he's a super nice guy, and it's just different personalities. I had to get used to his personality and realize he wasn't just.
Yeah.
And once I got with the program and didn't hate him, you know, then it worked out pretty good. The siphon thing, I ended up giving my siphon away. That's how much I hated it. I had it for a long time. I never made a decent cup of coffee with it, and I was just tired of the rejection. So I just said, every time I make one, it takes too much time and
Yeah.
it sucks. And so
Yeah.
the only time I want to put sugar in my coffee is when I make it with a freaking 20-minute coffee method, you know, and then it
They look
just tastes
cool.
like crap. It looks cool. It's great.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
As long as you just don't have to drink it. But there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that actually make a good cup out of it. But I'm not one of those. And so Airly was actually starting a coffee shop, and so it's sitting on his wall now. I'm like, I'm not taking this thing home with me. I'm leaving it here. Thanks for letting me go to your school. You can have this thing. And but it
So
was
what's
fun.
what is your go-to for cupping and stuff? What pour over or what method?
I'll
what
have to
type,
I'll
brand?
have to post because I'm not a professional cupper. And what
Sure.
my goal was when I started torturing some of this coffee and trying different fermenting methods, we've done anaerobic, we've tried fermenting. I fermented one for 3 days. I had my guys go out every hour and rotate the bag of coffee 90 degrees every hour so that it stayed evenly. We did core temperatures on it. I've tortured a lot of coffees. But once we cup the coffee and we sort of decide what everything is, we write it down on paper, then we send it to have it professionally cupped. And then when it comes back, I recup it and sort of see if I see what he's seeing. And then we figure out which lots can be mixed together. And then I take it to I have a big formal cupping table, and it's what's called an international cupping table. So it has 8 stations. Each one of the stations has 5 little holes. I had 5 cups. And so that way 5 people can be cupping at the same time, and each person gets to break the crust. Because breaking the crust is super important.
Right.
That's when you release those aromas.
Yep.
And so then 5 people can cup at the same time. And then once we've done all that and finish your traditional cupping, then I move it over to my secondary table. And that's where I have a couple of aerial presses, a couple of French presses, a couple of V60s, a couple of these, they're Bonavita. It's like a V60, but it has a valve on the bottom of it. And then we've got a couple of Chemexes. And so then we'll take each coffee and we'll run it through those methods, and we'll see if one coffee pops more on one thing than the other. And that's what made me decide that my full natural Limpira really worked better as a full single origin espresso than anything. Because I do not like it in a cup. Like I haven't found a brew method that I really love the full natural in. But when I run it through a good quality espresso machine, and so I took it to some of the local coffee shops and said, will you brew this in your espresso machine? And that's how I did that, because I wanted to put it on a $15,000 espresso machine, because that's how it's going to get served to the rest of the world.
Right.
I bought a $140 espresso machine, and that's an awful machine. It got broken on the way here on the airplane. I duct taped it back together. Thank God for black Gorilla duct tape, because that stuff's amazing.
It does work well.
Between that and JB Weld, man, I put her back together almost like factory. But it's not hot enough. You don't have any control in your extraction times. And every time I try to crank the portafilter in, I would break the frame again. So then I went back with a piece of metal and screwed it back together. And so it was just a lost thing. I just gave up on it. I took it to some places that had La Maserado or whatever espresso makers, that were commercial 2 and 3 groupers, and brewed it with them and had different baristas brew it and try the different coffees. And so that's when I liked that one coffee. And then my second favorite coffee was the Canal Wash Lempira. That really works well as an espresso. It doesn't have that fruit bomb side to it, but it's a nice, clean cup with good chocolate base, caramel notes, and it just seemed to work really well. And I enjoyed it as just a straight shot of espresso. And then when I made an Americano, I was like, this is my coffee right here, a washed coffee and an Americano.
Yeah.
But as I started growing more varieties, then it just got more complicated. But that secondary table, I enjoy doing that more because that's where we really find, which coffee does best at what. The full natural doesn't work that great in the AeroPress, but all the washed coffees seem to do really good in the AeroPress. The honeys, not so much. The fruit flavor doesn't seem to come through as hard on the honey process. But this year we haven't run this year's Marciesa through any of the trials. So because it's my first year to really have Marciesa. I think last year we had a bag and a half. So I don't know that I ever put it online last year. I think we named it Don Ashley, and we just sold it roasted last year. And so I even had some of my green customers buy the Don Ashley roasted because that was the only way that we sold it. It just was a really nice coffee. And the majority of it last year was red honey process, where this year we ran it through all 3. But on the Perry Nama is the washed at an 88. It was 86 to 88. And then the Marciesa was 87 across the board with the washed Marciesa. So the washed coffees seem to be dependable. They're very versatile. And they're easier for us to process, and we're getting good cupping scores. So for me, it's just a win-win, and everybody seems to like them. I think a lot of people buy the naturals because they want to try something different, and then they don't like them. If they're buying the roasted, a lot of the roasted customers don't like the naturals because they don't know how to brew them and how to enjoy them.
Right.
And I don't either. I need to work with them more.
They're a lot more finicky, excuse me, and I think they tend to have a lot more fruity flavors. And if you like that, they're very unique. I love a really good like blueberry bomb, something with a lot of blueberry notes, with a little chocolate finish. But when it gets too citrusy or too sour, some of the raspberry, strawberry, I don't care for the tartness as much. So I tend to lean towards like a mellow blueberry pour over or a really chocolate caramel espresso. But that's just what triggers my taste buds.
Well, our 2021 crop, it was lot 26. And the home roasters nicknamed it the Fruit Bomb. And so we started calling it the Fruit Bomb. And the cuppers notes on it were cocoa and blueberry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The cocoa was fine, but cocoa is a little more of a drier, gritty flavor compared to like chocolate. And the sweet chocolate is the cupping notes here in Spanish, but the sweet chocolate would be the equivalent of milk chocolate.
Okay,
And
Gotcha.
This year, I have a natural that's dulce de leche.
Ooh.
And so if you've ever heard of Tres Leche's cake,
Yep.
the caramel cream they put on the top of it is dulce de leche.
Okay.
And so that I have a coffee, and I haven't tried it. I had so many lots this year. The cupping note on it was dulce de leche. And so I've got to look up and see what lot that is. I didn't bring my cupping notes, and the girl that's putting them on a spreadsheet for me is not finished yet. So, but yeah, you guys remind me of that, and I'll dig some of that out.
Oh, that sounds really good. Yeah,
Sure I get it.
I'd love to try some.
Yeah, it's a fine coffee. Now, did you get some naturals this last time, Barry? Did I put a natural in for you to try? Because
You
you
did.
ordered red honey.
Yeah, you gave me the lot M2N. Yeah, I'm actually
Okay.
right here.
Yeah, that's the one that said mango on it. And that's the one the other day I tried, and it was good espresso shot in my bad espresso machine.
Okay.
But then after it got cold, I liked it twice as much. And of course,
Hmm.
so much of coffee is what drives you crazy being in the business is personal preference.
For
You know,
sure.
somebody walks through the door and I like a strong cup of coffee. I'm like, well, send it to the gym. I don't know what that means.
Right.
Is that the one that was mango and ripe fruit?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
And so, from what the cupper described, because there's a lot of translation differences, because when he says cocoa versus, if he says sweet, but there's a lot of that. But the ripe fruit tends to be a sweeter fruit, a softer fruit, where that mango, the natural taste of mango, is a little bit tart. And so I didn't think those two would work together, and they seem to. But I mean, this year we've got the craziest flavor profiles we've had in 9 years of. Well, I've been growing coffee for over 13 years, but we've only been exporting for this is my eighth or ninth season to export coffee. And so, out of all the seasons we've exported coffee, these are the most unique coffees we've ever had: passion fruit, dulce de leche, pink grapefruit. Um, to have a coffee that has chocolate notes versus it saying either milk chocolate or cocoa, those are defined flavors. Whether it says our red honey naturally says chocolate, hints of caramel, and fruit,
Yeah.
versus it saying blueberry or strawberry. That defined name that they put on there, that's a big deal in the coffee industry for it to, to slap a name on the fruit, where fruit is pretty generic. It just means fruity, But the blackberry one that we had, and I had a Bourbon that was cupped 89.25 2 years ago, and it had strawberry with hints of lemonade.
Hmm.
And that was just that thing sold the first week. It was gone. I didn't even get to. I had never even roasted it because I was afraid to roast it. It was too nice. So I was roasting it in my little husky, and I was selling it dollars a pound because it took so dang long to roast it. But then I kept out 12 pounds for me, and the rest of it just sold online before I could stop it.
Wow.
So yeah, that score is a great score. That was the best score I've ever had. I walked into this room right here. My wife thought I was having a heart attack because I was crying. And we'd never had higher than an 86.5. And then I got an 89.25 on that coffee.
Oh,
And I was just crazy excited.
Wow.
And so
that's great.
she's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, just give me a second."
Amazing feeling.
I'm like, "I'm a freaking coffee farmer now, man."
I can do this for real now.
Last time, before that, was some idiot that bought a coffee farm in a foreign country by accident, And so, but now it seems like I know what I'm doing. But the next year it was an 88, and the year after that was an 86. So
Wow.
it's a really finicky coffee. One year it'll drop down to last year, for example, the whole farm produced 120 pounds. This year it was over 500.
Okay.
Of that, they're all definite lots, and we fenced in every different lot with every different variety. The yellows, like the yellow Catuí and the yellow Bourbon, the regular people can see the color and they know not to go in there and pick it. But when you've got a red Icatu and a red Lempira, the plants and the top leaves are similar colors, and so it's really hard to tell the difference in the plants. So you're going to have to flip the leaf over and look at the veins inside of it, compare the two veins to see the difference in Lempira and Icatu. And there's a color. The new leaves come out. They're either bronze or red. And so you really have to pay attention to know the different varieties of coffee. And so what we did was we just fenced them in with the barbed wire fence. And then the workers will work that area, and then we rebag it. and we mark the bags, and we give them ECA 2 bags. And so then they'll go into the lot of ECA 2 and pick that. And so it makes it complicated when you're processing the coffee because you have to keep all that separated. I'm not convinced that my production was down as low as 50 pounds. I think somebody screwed up and didn't pay attention to the workers and mixed up the bags. And I think my yellow Bourbon either got put in with the yellow Catuai or got mixed in with something else. Because it's hard to believe that I had 300 and something pounds one year and then went to 50, and then this year I have 500. I think it's more likely that it was a screw up. But when you read the history of yellow Bourbon, especially the heritage, the heirloom quality, the heirloom coffee from the Bourbon Islands, that coffee has a high mortality rate from La Roya, and it has a high production rate and a low production rate, where Lempiras, Noventas, and ECA 2s are very level. The lots are pretty close to the same every year. But that one's a real finicky plant. It's one of the few plants I have that are susceptible to the La Roya plague or the La Roya fungus that you have. And so, and that's one of the reasons we quit growing Catuai. We had a lot of trouble with La Roya, and the production rates were up and down, and I never got more than 85 out of the cup. And that coffee should really be doing well. It should be cupping 86s, 87s, but in 5 years, I never got more than 85. So we cut down 5,000 plants and replanted it with the Marciesa. And the Marciesa's done really well. And we've been tickled with it.
Awesome.
But now, Barry, have you tried the ECA 2 or any of those other ones?
Yes, I have. I've tried the ECA 2. I've tried the Bourbon when you have that, and I've tried the yellow Catuai. All of those were excellent. I really liked the Bourbon when the last time I had it, but I don't know if that was like, I don't know when the last time you had it, or when was the last time I've ordered it from you. Maybe that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it would have had to be because we didn't put any online last year.
Gotcha.
I only had, I think it was 52 pounds.
Okay.
And that roast out to what, 43 pounds or something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we just sold it roasted. That was all we could do.
It was really, really good.
Because we had, we have a few customers, and so we have to make sure that, because 2 years ago, our production dropped. A couple of years ago, the production, we had 203 bags, like exportable bags, 151 pounds each. And then we had 2 hurricanes that came through, and we only had 96 that next year. So we had over 100 home roasters that were buying from us, and we had to stop selling to most of the home roasters because I had contracts with some of these big guys. Like the spice merchant buys 30 bags every year. Well, I only had 96 bags, and so I couldn't sell him a third of my crop. So I went and talked to him, and he ended up buying 20 bags. And then I just had to cut back so that we had enough to make it. But then luckily we had a guy that had bought 20 bags, and something happened, and I'm not sure if he's still in business or not, but he brought them back. And so the year that we only had 96 bags, we had a guy that brought 3 pallets back, which were 24 bags. So that gave us enough coffee to get through the year. And then this year, when the coffee container got here, I had 160 bags last year. I think we had like 12 bags when the container landed. So we were getting pretty low. And then this year's production was 181 bags. The electricity is sort of going up and down. So if I blank out, that might be the electricity for the night. But yeah, it's, we have to make sure that we have enough to roast and sell roasted. The goal is there's a couple of the bigger roasters that this year weren't willing to go up on price. And so, we lost 1 or 2 of them. And that's sort of the nature of the game.
For sure.
And especially when they sort of make that, there's a move, there's sort of a certain bags per year. And they make this move and they realize, the customers that buy our coffee know that we support the children's library and there's a church and there's, projects. And we have a bank on the farm. 3 weeks ago, we loaned Pedro the money to buy a second farm. We've loaned Santos. He's got 3 farms now. Juan Carlos bought a big farm. Bahidio's got his 3rd farm.
Very cool.
And our coffee does that. And so I saw a guy talking one day and says, people want competitive price, good quality, and blah, blah, blah. It's like pick one,
Pick one for sure.
And so we can't be competitive to the guy that's buying coffee at below commodity prices. Then he sends it and have it cupped. And then all of a sudden it's specialty grade. And then he sells it to Olam or Royal, which are 2 huge buyers in our area here. And then he sells them specialty coffee that he bought at commodity prices.
Oh my goodness.
And that's the way mills do. Mills aren't going around looking for this quality coffee from each farm. They go to my friend Herbert. Last year, he sold 5 53-foot trailer truckloads of coffee just to Olam.
Wow.
And so he buys coffee and he pays $34 below commodity prices.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what all the mills do around here. There's 20-something mills. They all collaborate, and that's the price they pay for commodity prices.
That's horrible.
So, but then they have every single coffee cupped to the point where most of the mills now have, like Herbert's mill, he's got 2 Mill City roasters in there, and that's what he has to take to do cupping, because there's so many, they're just roasting coffee, because he's got 200 or 300 people a day coming in, bringing coffee. Wow. So they pull samples, they dry it, and he's got 6 industrial dryers.
Wow.
The smallest dryer he has does 3,500 pounds every 36 hours. The big ones, he's got 3 big boys that dry 6,500 pounds every 36 hours.
Oh my goodness.
So when you bring your coffee in the cherry, within 36 hours, it's dried in parchment, and it's going in the storeroom, and then Olam comes out. I hope I don't get shot for mentioning names, but luckily there's only 50 people that watch your podcast. You're fairly safe. But when I hit Joe Rogan, somebody's probably going to off me. But
those industry secrets.
Yeah. Well, I have to start deleting these. If I ever get famous, I'll start deleting some of these episodes. So episode 30 is going to be gone when I get famous. But like Olam will come in, and that's how I learned about the Gin Cafe or the Genie Cafe. A guy showed up on a motorcycle one day, and they had all these white folding tables laid out, and there was numbers by the little pile of green coffee. And that guy brought out the Gin Cafe and a big extension cord. And he just went roasting from table to table. And he roasted. The next day he came back and he went into the cupping lab, and they did nothing but just cup. And then he came out, and by each numbered lot, he wrote an offer down. And then they bought, like 2 or 3 truckloads of coffee that day.
Wow.
I think it's roughly 6.5 to 1. So it's different once it's in parchment. But roughly 8.25 pounds of coffee in the cherry makes 1 pound of roasted coffee. Now, those are the stats on my coffee from my farm with my insect level, my defect level, and those things. So roughly they're buying... So when you pay, I forget what it was. Last year, it was $42 per 100 pounds of cherry. So if you multiply that times 6, that's what they're paying for the coffee. And if that coffee gets cupped and it's specialty grade coffee, then they basically pay a quarter to 35 cents more per pound for that coffee.
Wow.
And it's specialty grade. So some of the numbers that I do know about for sure is the mill that was buying Anna's coffee. They signed a contract with her, and the contract says payable in uva, so it's payable in grape. So she could only repay that coffee with the cherry that she picked from her farm.
Oh
So
wow.
she couldn't go in and pay her fertilizer bill with cash. It has to be paid. The reason being, they've already cupped that coffee. They've already got an established buyer for it. They know what her history of cupping scores are. And so they're buying it and reselling it before the crop were even harvested.
Oh my.
So she has to sell it that way. So what we did was we gave her fertilizer that next year so she didn't have to go in debt. And that fertilizer is accruing 4% interest per month. It's 48% interest a year. And so there's a song called I Owe My Soul to the Company Store.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. You go to the mill and they sell you fertilizer and you start paying interest. And then when your crop finally comes in, you sell them the crop, they deduct the fertilizer, less the interest, and you get what's left. So the first year we sent Anna her coffee to be cupped, it was an 85.5. Then we're out there planting some plants that she was given. So I took my crew out. We had more organic compost. My guys dug the holes and we're planting this coffee. And so I decided it was smarter for us to put a little bit of fertilizer in each one of those tiny plants before we planted it while it was still in my truck.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that I don't know who he was. They come to find out he's from the mill. He saw us fertilizing and he come yelling, stop, stop. And so we come over there. He didn't realize that Anna wasn't going to sell him his coffee that year because he's just a rep. He's just a worker from the mill.
Yeah.
And so he didn't realize it wasn't going to be his coffee. So he wanted us to stop fertilizing. And I said, why? And he said, this farm is certified organic. Anna had no idea that the mill had gone and certified her farm organic. So they're selling her coffee specialty grade because it's got a history of being 85 plus or 80 certified organic because she's too poor to fertilize.
Right.
And so they're selling her organic fertilizer at a higher rate and charging her interest to do so. And they're getting a premium for her coffee because it's organic and specialty grade. And she got nothing for that. And so just screwing her every way till Sunday. And so the first year, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, because for me to throw her 4 bags of coffee in with my 200 is nothing. I literally did very little. And I didn't even throw the bags in. Some of her guys threw the bags in.
Right.
And so for me to bring her coffee to the States takes very little to no effort. So I'm not saying I'm this great savior for doing that for her. But what I did do was find her a buyer that would do what we call a compassion buy and buy her coffee at a really good price. And so she's realizing $5.20 a pound for her green coffee. And so she had 4 bags of coffee that went to the States the first year. After she sold the first 2 bags, my wife deposited the money into her account. She sent us this love letter, and it was really nice, saying that this is more money than I sold my entire farm for last year.
Oh, man.
She had no idea that there were still 2 bags that hadn't been sold yet. Once the buyer got the coffee and drank it, because he just had to take my word, just like you take my word for the coffee's good.
Right.
Hopefully knowing that if it sucks, I'll give you your money back or I'll send you some more coffee. So once he got the coffee and he roasted it and really loved it, then he turned around and bought the other 2. And so that first year, she knew she was going to get more money than any other year. And then after that, we established, with this guy that he's going to get all her coffee. And then the price went down a little bit, but she's still consistently getting, because I don't want her to have a false sense of what her coffee is actually worth. And so this year, she's actually paying for the cost to export it to the States. She's paying for, and even last year she paid that. She paid for the coffee, the price of processing it and all that. We did build her a solar dryer on her property and gave that to her. It was one of our old ones, the small test one that we retired. We gave that to her, set it up for her, poured the concrete and all. And so she can dry her coffee. Her husband, with money that they made, bought her a little tiny wet mill. And so she processes all of her own coffee on her own farm. She only brings it here to get it dehulled. and that's free. And then she pays the girls that are already in our lab to select the coffee. And then we bag it up. We use used Grain Pros that she washes and sanitizes, and then we give her the burlap sacks, which are like $5. But the idea is, I could easily give her all of it. But the idea is, she knows exactly what it costs, all the expenses and everything. And one day I'm going to die. Hopefully it's not tomorrow. But if I die tomorrow, she
Please
knows
don't.
who's buying her coffee. Yes, please don't. She knows who's buying her coffee. She knows what they're paying for it. She's been to me to eCafe, which is the government office, every single time. She knows the exporter. So she knows how to get the coffee to the States. She knows who to send it to. She has her own account with an international funding route on it. So they can put the money straight into her account. So she doesn't have to have me in the process. And so she knows what her coffee's worth. And she knows this year she had some coffee that was 82. So she's going to take a hit on that coffee.
Got you.
And so it's 82.5. It's still specialty grade. It's a quarter ways into specialty grade. It's still a great coffee, or good coffee, however you want to say it, but it's not as good as our 85.5. And so the production roasters aren't going to pay as much. But I luckily found a lady roaster that has a lady coffee business. I don't know how I'm supposed to say that, but I found a woman roaster that owns the business. And so I purposely, focused on her. And they bought 316 pounds of her coffee. And then they bought some of her pea berry.
No.
And then Jose bought some, and he paid a good price for it. But I still have like 9 bags of her coffee. So I'm trying to reach out to some female coffee roasters. And surprisingly enough, there's not a Facebook page that's like Women Roaster or She Roasters or anything like that. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to just make one. And then I think, Barry, Jenny's Java, don't you? She's out of California.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
She just went from an air roaster to the B-More. So
Okay.
she's more into that. So she buys some of Anna's coffee, but she mainly has a house cleaning business. And so instead of the mint on the pillow, she gives her customers a little coffee sample every week.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
And then from there, she's generated some customers. But I think she's buying 20, 30, 40 pounds of Anna's coffee every year, green and roasted. So we're looking for more people to do that.
Okay.
And hopefully get her coffee sold, bring that price up.
For sure.
And a lot of those people don't really care if it's an 82 or 85 and may not know the difference. So that's a situation where we could get a good price for Anna's coffee. But like, as far as that goes, Anna lived in an adobe house. She was 36, had 3 kids, and never had a refrigerator. Now her husband's a pretty sharp guy. He does construction. So they're above most normal people. So they had a decent sized house, but it was adobe. So they've got a new roof on it. Got concrete siding on it, doors on it that are better than what they used to have. But now she's got a refrigerator. She actually has a washing machine, an electric Whirlpool washing machine. And now she's the manager of the farm. So she's sharp. And then I noticed the other day there was an extra book. We have this drawer where we have 2 banks on the farm. And then we have just standard weekly loans. And then we have coffee book for where she sells we sell coffee here on the farm. She has all these books she keeps up with. And I noticed one that said Anna Personal, and I asked her what that was. And she says, well, I make loans with my extra money. She doesn't charge interest. But a lot of times, like right now, both of my banks are at 0. We don't have any money to lend right now. Gotcha. And so she's picking up my slack. Nice. And so she's loaning weekly money and sometimes like 3-month money. And that's as far as we usually go out with those with one account. There's the other account. The second bank is the long term, where it's indefinite amount of time. You have to make $4 a week payments on that's a minimum payment. So like Juan Carlos borrowed a couple of $1,000 to buy a farm. Mm-hmm. Well, then he had to borrow money from the short-term bank to buy the plants because I didn't have extra plants in my nursery to give him. And so he hasn't started making payments on his principal loan yet. He's just doing the $4 a week. Once he waits that 3 or 4 years and he actually has coffee in production, then because I talked him into cutting down the whole farm. He didn't want to do it. So we ended up, he cut down all the older plants and planted Perianema, because that's what some of his neighbors had. We knew that would grow at his altitude and that would grow in his soil. So they planted a majority of the farm with Perianema. So he's not going to have to make a payment until the 2024 crop comes in. And so once that crop comes in, then he's going to have to start making 20% of his crop. He'll have to pay whatever he sells it for. He'll pay 20%. So if I can find him a buyer for it, then his 2025 crop will get sold in the United States. So he'll give me 20 pounds of his coffee green for free. And then I'll send those out and I'll pay the shipping and stuff to the States, but I'll pay to have it cupped, and then I'll send that coffee to different buyers and try to establish a buyer straight for his coffee. And then once we do that, then that'll be 2024. And then 2025 crop, hopefully we'll have that sold green in the United States, because he's got a bigger farm. So that's the hope with his farm. If he takes care of it. The lady up here, Marixa, she had maybe a third of an acre, maybe a quarter of an acre. And we actually gave her the plants, planted them for them, gave her the first fertilizer for the first year. So she had zero sweat equity in the farm, and she just let them all die.
Ooh.
She didn't do anything with them. And so, you can only help somebody if they're willing to help themselves. So at that point, we had to change things up. We learned a lot of things the hard way. The first year we had a community meeting, had a bunch of extra plants. And then somebody had a greenhouse and they said, we planted everything. Do you want these extra plants? And there was 5,000 plants. And so we had a community meeting. We made a list. Everybody told me how many plants they needed. And then I divided how many people needed plants into that 5,000. I did a formula where I took into their crop size into account. And so everybody got these plants. So I spent a couple of days loading them up, delivering them to their farm, gave them to them free of charge. And the next year when we had a community meeting, I had everybody write down their farm sizes and all of that and what coffee was planted. And out of the 11 farmers that got coffee, only one of them had Katu'i listed on their farm. The other 10 took the coffee and sold it.
So how far apart do you have to plant those whenever you're planting like that, like from the seedlings?
It's according to personal preference, but our new plantings are 2 meters by 1.7 meters.
2 meters by 2 by 1.7.
So the 1.7, the 2 meters, they'll eventually grow together. And the 1.7, that'll be the walkway that they walk through to pick the coffee. You only want them passing the coffee in one direction. If they start going through the other way, then they're going to be knocking coffee off the plant, knocking flowers off the plant, breaking.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of cherries dropping.
Limbs. So there's always what's called a row and a road. So the road is where they walk down through. And so that's a little bit closer. And so that's our plant spacing. Some people do 1.3 and 1.5, and they're really packed in there.
That sounds tight. I'm a big old boy. That sounds pretty tight to me.
Yeah, and you're dragging through, the limbs are hitting you the 1.7 that we do. But then when you've got the guys coming through, if the plants are going too close and they're there cutting, they just whack the limbs off with the machete. Because if there's no sunlight getting there, the ground is never going to dry out completely, and then that's going to promote funguses.
Yeah, it was cause rot.
There's a root rot that's very rare, but then there's Leroya is called leaf rust. And so that's a big deal. And then there's one called chicken eyes, which I'm not sure what that would actually be called. in English, but the
They just
literal
call it chicken
translation,
eyes.
they call it chicken eyes, and then they call it La Roya in Spanish, but La Roya, they call it leaf rust in English.
Hmm.
So chicken eyes is directly translated. I'm not sure what the English version. It doesn't. I've never heard anybody say it in English, but I've heard of leaf rust. But
So what
in
does
order
the
to do
chicken
that,
eyes do to the
it's
plant?
it'll eventually kill it. It makes it drop the leaves, and if you drop so many leaves, you can't have the photosynthesis,
Hmm.
and so because that's how it translates into the plant is through the leaf. So if you drop enough leaves, you don't have enough photosynthesis. And when we spray, we can't get enough of that spray into the plant because we spray the leaves, it soaks in. And so that just weakens the plant. And once it gets so weak, we go ahead and cut it down because otherwise somebody's going to fertilize it and it's a wasted fertilize. Once it's that sick, it's not going to bounce back. And if it does, it takes a couple years. And rather than nurse it for a few years, let's go ahead and cut it down and plant something better in its place.
So you don't cut back or cut down unless you just have to then.
Right.
Or if it's just a bad cherry.
Yeah. If the plant is just really sick, we just go ahead and cut it, take it out and burn it. And because some of those funguses can transmit. And so we'll cut it and gently drag it out. I'm not going to have a guy try to tie up 20 plants and drag them out. Take 2 or 3, drag them out, let them dry, burn them. Because that's just what's recommended to do with them.
Just a slow process, but once you get it done, you're ready to start all over again.
Yeah.
Or replant.
And the hard thing is these guys want to take those coffee trunks home with them. And because they use that for sticks to burn in their adobe stoves.
Okay.
Coffee plant is a semi-hardwood. And so it burns real hot and real slow. So that it works perfect in the adobe stove. So we have to talk them into taking it into one spot, then cutting it, and then taking that stick home with them and burn it. Where I would my preference would be just to burn it all in one pit. So now we've got a pit where we can take it to, throw them all in that pit. But still they come out and steal the sticks.
They cut out what they can and take off with it?
Yeah, but at least I've got it in one general location and it's on the leaf. So at least we can control part of it.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that though. I mean, if it's a semi-hardwood,
and
I grew up around a fireplace, so I get it.
Well, and they all burn that. That's what they cook with, and so they're all burning that. So it's all. And most of the trees here don't burn very well. We have a Caliandra that if you let it dry for a couple of months, it works okay. But they want that coffee. And I'm getting ready to cut down. I've got about 1,500 plants we're going to plant in about 3 weeks. And so they'll have to clear some land. So they're going to go into some old growth areas, put up a barbed wire fence, and they're going to start establishing a new lot of a Robusta variety that I have.
I've never tried a Robusta.
Robusta?
I know it's a higher caffeine.
Yeah. But it doesn't taste very good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that a lot of people blend it. They'll put like a 20% blend in with their other beans or something. I've heard that.
Just my opinion, but what I've experienced is they do 50-50 with a little bit nicer Arabica coffee to sort of soften out the more harsh Robusta. And so then you end up with, we call it calf and a half.
Calf and a half?
Because I've got a half calf that's half decaf and half Arabica. And so it's got half the caffeine as my normal coffee. So I've got an Asian decaf. No, it's an India. It's an India AA Pupalang Estate. And it's a pretty decent Robusta.
Is it?
And so I've been doing it straight. I've been cupping it and trying it straight. But boy, you can feel the hair grow on the back of your neck.
Yeah, I was about to say that's probably one of those mornings where you're like, well, I need a little extra kick. So,
but this year we're going to have two new options. One of them is going to be the calf and a half. We don't have it marked online yet, but it'll be the calf and a half, because I'm going to have to buy a couple bags of this coffee. I don't grow it. So we'll have a calf and a half, and then we're going to have a double calf. And the double calf will be pure India coffee.
India Robusta.
Yeah. And it's a pretty decent coffee.
You're gonna
8 years
put
ago.
it on your website, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be on my website. And for you home roasters and stuff that have been online and been on the podcast, if you want some of it green, I'll sell it to you green.
That's probably how I'd want to try it, just to see how I could roast it.
And I think I'll be able to sell it to you for like $4.50. Because
I've heard it's a lot more affordable.
Well, it's not just that. I can sell you pretty much any coffee you want for about $4.50.
Oh, okay.
Because my customer buys it straight from Royal, who's a mill buyer who cuts the farmer out, and I can buy it for so far every coffee I've bought. The highest price I paid was $3.50.
I know. I watched I don't remember who it was, but somebody had a YouTube going that had a gentleman from Royal on there, and that's what it sounded like. I didn't realize what it was until I went to their website, and I was like, okay, this is by the bag.
Yeah, but I can buy it from this customer of mine. I think Bill's not. I know if Bill's watching. Bill, if you're watching, jump in. I've got a couple coffees for Bill that were a high-end coffee, and I think I sold them to him for $5 a pound. That was like me delivering it to him. Versus my cheapest coffee is in the $6 range, $6.25.
The Lempier is $6, I think, because I did the washed is $6, because I think I bought like 3 pounds of it this last time. Well, it's the first time, but this first order, I think I bought 3 pounds of it.
Well, coffee is sold a couple ways, because we do a more realistic price. How hard it is to process, and so that's why the naturals are higher. And then unique cupping scores and high cupping scores, is how the coffee's rated. And I haven't had anything since lunch to eat, so I'm eating pistachios. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're okay. I was snacking on some pretzels a while ago. So
I've drank so much coffee today, I'm getting really jittery if I don't eat.
I just had a cup of that Paranema that I got off of you this evening. It's like 10 days in, and I swear it's gotten better at the 10th day than it was at the 5th day.
I generally don't cup my coffee until after 2 days.
Oh, I've never cupped any of it. I just basically brew it up and drank it.
Well, I use the terminology cupping.
Oh, I got you.
But that's generally what I do. And cupping is just the trying of the coffee and gauging it, judging and all that. But my cupping method normally is that Bona Vita. It's like a V60 type brewer.
Is that the one that you fill, and then once it gets, you set it on the cup and then it drops?
Yeah, that it's very similar to that. Somebody developed a cheaper way to make the same thing.
Yeah. So
this is similar, and once you do that, it opens the valve. Let me grab my other one. It's right here by the sink.
You're froze up right now, so I'm not seeing it. Right this second, you're kind of froze up. But I think I've seen something similar, though.
This one is the one I use most of the time, and it's called a full immersion brewer. And so it's basically one of those V60s, but it's got a valve.
Okay.
And so you can let the coffee steep for 2 or 3 minutes and then brew it. But it's porcelain, so it's more expensive. But when I ordered one, that was the only option. Versus this guy here, I think these are like $8 or $9. And I'm really liking this because I can just lay it on the scale and pour all my stuff out. And I don't have to do all the troublesome
pre-measurement and all that.
Well, I still pre-measure it, but normally I have my coffee pot and then I put that on the coffee pot, my little kettle.
Yeah.
But these things don't attach to the coffee pot. So there's been a couple times where I've hit the handle and knocked the whole thing off and broken one of them. Versus this little guy here, I just lay it on top of my scale and I go ahead and put the filter in it. I wet the filter and then I take it over here and I just dump the water out in the sink. And then I go ahead and put it back on the scale, zero the scale. I put my coffee in it. I can pour the amount of coffee in there and steep it. And then I go ahead and pour the thing full of whatever mix of, coffee and water I want. And then when I take it off the scale, because these little feet are sitting on the scale, once I set it on my cup,
that's when it starts to drop.
Yeah. So this thing, and I think it literally was like $8 or $10. It wasn't much. Versus
I guess the one I seen was the other one, because I think it was like, I want to say $35 or $40. The one that I seen. This
one was $43, and when I got ready to order another one, because you need two, and when I ordered another one, I couldn't find it, and I haven't found this heavy porcelain one since then.
Where did you find the other one at? Amazon or something?
If it was more than about 5 years ago, it was eBay. In the last couple of years, I've ordered everything off Amazon because once I bit the bullet and bought the whole Prime thing.
We do that.
And for a while, it didn't seem to make sense to me. But then once we got to a certain level of, we were buying our coffee bags, like these bags. We were buying them just 100 at a time, 50 of this. And that's the beauty of Amazon, because you can buy like this bag for, I think it's like 80 cents a piece on Amazon.
They're pretty cheap. They're pretty affordable. I mean,
and when you're doing small batches, and you don't have a ton, but when when all of your overhead is $2,000 or $3,000, you've got a chance of hitting a profit. If you can get into a bag for 80 cents and you can get $15 for your bag of coffee. Because some of the guys, you're just doing family and friends. So some of these guys are doing the farmers markets and doing those things. So they're starting to look at price.
Yeah.
Where, the other day, I think our coffee bag order was like $2,700. And that's a couple of thousand bags.
I was going to say that's a lot of pounds of coffee.
Yeah, and so this box type craft bag versus what this is called a pouch bag.
That's what I was keeping mine in for a while, is the pouches, which I still use them sometimes because I only do 8 or 10 ounce bags at a time.
Well, we're at the point, and I'm not trying to brag on our company, but we're at the point now where we have enough. My company, my big corporation, we're in a 70-year-old 2-car garage.
Okay.
That for some reason in the world, the health department said, okay, and so we cleaned it up enough and painted it enough that we put everything in the health department said put in. But that's my business. We're in a 70-year-old detached garage.
That's where your roaster and everything sits?
That's my coffee roasting empire, brother.
Nice.
It's 24 by 28 foot. And we are cramped in there at sometimes.
Oh, I would imagine, especially right after you just brought all that coffee over.
Now, they call them round tops. Some people call them Quonset huts. That was already there from the original farm. And my wife's family's been on the original farm since 1900. They've all lived on that same farm since then. And so I bought a 40-foot shipping container and drug it in there and set it up on concrete blocks, insulated it, put air conditioning in it, put heat in it, and put a dehumidifier in it.
So that's where you keep it all?
And then I built giant wooden racks down one side of it and then on the end of it. And those wooden racks, there's one section for Bourbon, Icatu, and so each coffee has its own section. L'Imperial has a washed, a honey, a natural. And so that's how we organize it. And that's where the bulk of the coffee stays. Okay. If we can only put about 15 bags in the roastery. But again, the health department didn't have any say on that. They turned me over to the grain department at Kansas State, and they
And they're
told
the
us how to
ones that.
store it. And
Oh, okay.
that was super easy. It's got to be so far from the wall, so far from the ground. And mice and rats don't eat coffee.
That's
And
what
so,
well, where I'm at, we got a couple of pastures around us, so we get field mice pretty regularly trying to make it into the house, and I've noticed they haven't touched my coffee at all.
yeah, no, they come in the house. They came in the house so bad last year that we were having rat snakes in the house.
Oh, I haven't had that issue in a couple years. We had one at the doorway once here, but that was quickly fixed.
Well, I got a couple of them last year.
Mm.
And then we have cows on the farm, so there's grain stored and there's hay.
Yeah,
So
we've
there's
got one
mice
pasture
everywhere.
where he keeps Branguses below us, and then the other pasture is a hay meadow. So you can imagine they're definitely there.
We got a big king snake here that keeps all the other ones.
But we don't have an issue with poisonous snakes though, because we got a big king that just hangs out.
Yeah, I need to get a snake that will take care of all that stuff.
That's basically what the king does. I mean, I don't even mess with him. He's been under my steps before, and I just go, if you don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. We're okay.
Yeah, I wish I had a couple of those guys. But my wife and mother-in-law are both terrified of snakes, so they want you to kill everything.
Yeah,
I usually
get
catch
that.
it. You just catch it, lie to them about it, take it around behind the barn, and set it loose.
Let it go. It'll go straight into the barn. Is what it'll do.
But we've got we always have a half a dozen cats.
Oh,
So
okay.
they take care of everything outside.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm a dog person. We don't have any cats. You probably seen my dog once or twice. They've been over here trying to jump on me while I've been.
He was cleaning your head a little while ago.
Yeah, she's spoiled rotten.
Yeah.
Lexi?
Yeah, Lexi.
She's Chihuahua and miniature greyhound.
Yeah, she's a Chihuahua and miniature greyhound mix. I don't know if you can hear my wife or not, but she's right beside me.
Well, the mother-in-law has a little Dorky. It's Dotson Yorkie.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have a ton of trouble with the mice. I mean, we started, letting the cats sort of run around, and we give away all we can. But usually there's 3 or 4 or 5, 6 cats. So I think they handle stuff pretty well.
This time of year, as it starts to cool down, we see them more often, and the glue traps come out.
Yeah.
I used to use the bait, which I still use it underneath sometimes, but not in the house. They'll find a place to get in your wall, and you're stuck with that for like 2 weeks.
No, the glue traps work pretty good.
Yeah, they do.
And we've got an inside cat. So I've always heard that if the mice smell the cat and they stay away.
See, that's what Charlene tells me all the time. That's my wife's name. She says we need a cat. If they see a cat around, they won't come around.
But we have to start with the baby or the long grill.
Yeah.
Well, I got about a dozen. I'll put them in a box and mail them to you.
Oh no! I don't need a dozen.
No.
By the time they get there, I'll probably be down to 2 or 3. I won't send them overnight.
Well, he keeps all his
Right. I mean, I'm not a cat person, but I don't know about all that. It'd be surprising.
It costs so dang much to have them neutered and spayed and all that.
It is pretty expensive. All our dogs besides one, which we have 6, all of them besides one is a male, 1 male and 5 females, and they're all fixed.
We're down to 5.
Excuse me, and down to 5. I lost one about 3 months ago.
Well, I tend to get attached to them. I kid my wife about hauling them off every once in a while, but they have some pretty good humane societies around us.
Do they?
Where once or twice a year, they'll offer spaying and neutering for like $25.
Wow, that's a good deal.
What I consider.
Otherwise, it's over $100 to have it done.
I guess cats are higher than dogs then. My dogs usually run me about 50, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is to have them spayed.
Oh.
I think it's about $55. But we go to this place called Kitties and Canines over here in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I don't know if you've ever been to Fort Smith or not.
$60.
I've been through there a couple times.
Yeah.
They have to have a rabies.
It's like $50 plus the $20 fee for the rabies shot. They do that automatically.
My preacher that works up here that preaches at our church,
Mm-hmm.
he's supported by the Church of Christ in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
So his name is Jomar. But yeah, they've been supporting him for the last 4 years to go through seminary in Honduras. And then now they've continued to support, and he preaches at our church. So
they send missionaries down there too, then I guess.
No, he's Honduran.
Oh, okay.
And the college is here in Honduras.
Oh, okay.
The guy that established it back in 1946 or 45, something like that. The idea was to have these kids from Central, South, Latin America to come to this college and learn to be preachers. And these were kids that showed promise as a preacher or showed the desire to be a preacher in all these little countries all over. So they centralized the college in Honduras, and you go to college for at least 4 years. You can go 5 if you want. And then they get certified as a preacher, but they know counseling, psychology. They speak 2 or 3 languages at that point. They speak Spanish, they speak English.
Oh, yeah, they got me beat.
So, and then they go back to their hometown and they start up a church there.
Okay.
Jomar is from La Paz, which is about 45 minutes from here. And so he graduated last December, and I hired him to come and preach here 1 day a week. And then now his church in Fort Smith has adopted my church here on the farm.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't have to pay him anymore.
That's pretty cool.
And then and then there's another church that gave him a truck the other day, like a 2020 model truck. And so he went to driving school and learned how to drive.
They shipped him a truck?
No, they bought him one of the Honduran trucks here. It's a Toyota.
Okay.
It's a Toyota, but it's it was from the dealership here in town.
Oh, okay. So it's a Toyota Tacoma, I guess, or a full size?
No, they're called Hilux.
Oh, okay.
And so he comes here 2 or 3 days a week. He preaches at La Paz in the mornings on Sunday, and he goes home and eats, and then he comes out here and preaches it from 2 to 4 or something like that. And then he does home studies and home visits and things like that during the week. And so it's been really nice. I mean, he's a super nice guy. But yeah, when I heard that Fort Smith, and I knew that name. But I don't know how big of a town Fort Smith is.
Probably about, what do you say, Fort Smith?
Fort Smith from here to there.
20,000 people?
Oh, that's
yeah.
They probably got more than one Church of Christ.
Excuse me, they have around 50,000. I always forget. I go over the sign. I live on the opposite side of the bridge in Crawford County, but I go over every day to work, and
Urine's got 20,000.
It's 50,000. So there's probably, I'd probably say a good handful of Church of Christ.
I'll have to find out which one it is. But I've talked to them once or twice, just because I'm sort of out of the loop. I don't have a whole lot to do with the church. I did the construction on it, and it's on my farm here.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not called to preach or anything like that. I was building a library for my wife, and then some of the guys that had come to Honduras pretty regular that I've known for a while, they were saying, well, why don't we do a church? There's not a church in your area. And so from there, we started raising money, and the farm does what it can.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it was donated money. We had about $30,000 donated to help build the building.
That's probably a lot down there.
It is. We're still about 10,000 from having it finished.
Oh, okay.
But the beauty of it is once you get the building built, that's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. And the rest of it will fill the rest.
Land here is extremely expensive. We were looking at buying a lot that was like 30 by 60, and they wanted $8,000 for it.
30 by 60? Like 30 yards? 30
No,
meters?
30 feet.
Whoa.
There's one
Yeah, that's
down
pretty
there.
expensive.
A lot that's 20 meters by 20 meters is $15,000 in Planis, the little town next to us.
Wow.
There's one.
I wouldn't have thought that it would have been that expensive down there to buy property like that.
The coffee farmers don't want to sell their land.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty rare for a white person to be able to buy land, or somebody to be able to buy land outside the family.
Mhm.
Usually land is passed down father to son.
One in one.
And so
What-
this guy was living in the States illegally. And you can go online and read my story. It's called Accidental Coffee Farmer.
I think I read part of it whenever I was first looking at your coffee before I even talked to you. And I went to the site and was reading part of it, and I seen where you was talking about that, but then I got sidetracked. That happens to me sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I was and a lot of people would come in and buy a house, and they just shove these houses next to each other. And at the time, Julia and I, we were doing it on our own, so we didn't have any support. So the idea was we just wanted to build houses for people. And so I had the idea to do it with enough land where everybody I could break it into 3 parts. So you'd get a house, you'd have a fenced in area for a garden, because we only have 2 seasons here. So you can grow stuff 11 months out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then a pig is pretty easy to keep in a fence. And they breed like crazy. And so I thought that'd be a good thing for them to have. So I wanted to do a pig, 20 or 30 chickens, and a big garden, and you'd get a house. And in doing so, I wanted to buy a piece of land big enough that I didn't have to buy a piece of land every year. Whenever I had the money, I just cut out a piece of land and do the deal. And so we came across this, and it's 5 acres. And the guy was in dire need to sell it. And he was wanting a lot more money for it. And the guy said, well, what would you take for it? And so I ended up getting it for $16,000.
5 acres?
5 acres. I said, I can start the transfer today, and you'll have the money in like 3 days. And so the guy said, okay. And so he bought it. I mean, this was back in 2009. And so taking that into consideration, the farm next to me is $10,000 is what he's wanting per apple. And that's what they call it here, is apples.
So it's the same as an acre or similar to an acre?
There's more. It's like 1.7 acres.
Oh, okay.
But he's wanting 10,000 for the crappy part of the farm, and the higher part that I want, he won't sell it.
Oh, I got you.
So I could probably buy it if I offered him 10,000 an acre. I could probably get it, but it's just like in the States. If you want a little tiny chunk of land, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, we've been looking. I've been looking for some up in the mountains up here north of going towards Fayetteville, up in the mountains up there, just a little bit to just get away, And it's went up a lot. You used to be able to buy an acre up there for about $2,000 an acre. Now recently there was a 10-acre lot. It was 10 acres, and it went for I think $57,000. And it's not even good land. Like, it's in the middle of a bench. It's real rocky. You can't really build on it very well. And it was like 50 something. And those same people are trying to. Oh yeah, it was only 5 acres. Excuse me.
Yeah, that was only 5 acres. He wanted
50 didn't sound too bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I had it wrong. It was apparently 5 acres.
for 68,000.
The only reason I was interested in it at first when I heard about it is because it's actually right down the mountain from where my sister lives.
Well, it'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's up in the woods. There's nothing around you. That's what I liked about it. I live out of the city, but I'm still probably within. Well, I guess.
4.3 miles from town.
Yeah, 4.5 miles from a town called Alma, 8 miles from Van Buren, and 11 miles from Fort Smith.
Well, that's a good place to be.
Yeah, we're right here out of town. It's just I'm in the Bottoms land, closer to the river. it's a little, when they were talking about mosquitoes earlier in Wisconsin, I was like, I bet we got a challenge going on down here.
Yeah.
Because we get some pretty heavy mosquitoes where I'm at.
Yeah. You sit on the windowsill and wait for me to go outside.
My wife's one of those people that they love her. They hardly ever bite me, but boy, they tear her up every time she goes out.
Well, I saw a report last night, and they were talking about all the reasons why the mosquitoes bite some people and not others, and things like that. And
Iron, isn't it?
Well, this was saying, it was how much you sweat, because when you sweat, it puts off more body odor and more if you've got on perfume. And because I worked for AT&T for a long time, and I had rural routes. I buried the line and did directional drilling, and so I never wore. I just got in the habit of using unscented soap and whatever I could do. Because when you're sitting on that directional drill, sometimes it takes you 3 or 4 hours to drill under a road, and you can't really swat flies and all that. And so I did just whatever I could to not have any smell. And so I quit using scented soaps and stuff like that, just
Well,
just to sort of fly under the radar.
Can you still hear me? I took my earbud out.
Yeah, I can still hear you fine.
Okay, because I had my earbud in. My wife kept asking me what we were talking about with the Church of Christ, because she couldn't. One of the there's a pastor down there that is what'd you say? He's sponsored by the Church of Christ up here in Fort Smith.
Yeah, there's a Church of Christ in Fort Smith that pays his monthly salary to be a preacher, and they paid for him to go through the preaching school for either 4 or 5 years.
So he went through a seminary school.
Oh, wow.
I guess it's called seminary school, isn't that right?
It's something like that. Yeah, I think that they just call them preachers, and they call it a preaching college, but it's the exact same thing. It's just
those right there in Fort Smith on, isn't it 50th?
Yeah, there's a seminary on 50th Street over here in Fort Smith.
Well, this is just a regular old church that chose to sponsor a student, and then once he graduated, they chose to keep sponsoring him, all from here on out.
Oh,
and
that's
so,
cool.
Yeah, a lot of sponsor another student. So the president of the university is encouraging them to keep sponsoring them for 4 or 5 years until they can get a church sort of going, because it's very seldom that a church here is going to generate enough money to pay a preacher very well. So if you're going to be a full-time preacher, you're going to have a full-time job on top of it.
Yeah, well, it's not that much different, really, for a lot of small churches in this area where I'm at. It's the same way here.
Yeah. And like the preacher at our church, he left a few years ago, and I was sort of shocked to find out what he made as a full-time preacher. And that was like 20 years ago when I was at the church in Kansas. And then this preacher that works for us now has his own business, like a floor refinishing business.
Uh-huh.
And then he's making like his whole pay package with insurance and everything is like $70,000. I'm like, oh man, that seems pretty good to me. We're not making that in the coffee business for sure.
I've been in the same company for 10 years, and I can tell you I don't make that much.
Yeah. So that's, I don't know what the floor finishing business is, but that's still pretty good pay when you put them all together.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But I'm just glad I'm not called to preach, because that is not my thing. Hope I hear the rain coming again. There's another wave coming.
Yeah, you might end up losing power again. I didn't mean to get off.
Oh, he's in Honduras now?
Yeah, he's in Honduras right
now.
Oh,
wow.
You've been there for, a few days now?
Yeah, I got here on Friday. And then I'm only here through, I have to leave on Saturday and go back. I just came to break ground, and I'm meeting with a new contractor tomorrow and sort of make sure he knows exactly what we want done. It's going to eventually be a 2-story building. So I'm putting a lot more emphasis on how they do the footing
Is this going to be a storage facility, or is this going to be a new drying facility, or?
Everything we do here, we try to do multi-use. So it's going to be a children's classroom. It's up on top of the hill by the church, and so it'll be a children's classroom. But then in the wall, there's chains hanging every 6 feet. So when we have groups come from the States, we'll hang a hammock every 6 foot. And then between the hammocks on the ground, there will be a military cot. And in the corner is going to be a little tiny bathroom with a shower. And then, well, it won't be in the corner. It'll be a couple of feet off the corner. Then on the left side is where the refrigerator, a table will be a refrigerator under it, a microwave and a blender on top of it. And on the right side will be a little bit of storage for clothes and food. It'll take up it'll have a real small footprint. But the kids will use it for a classroom for church on Sundays and on Wednesdays or whenever they do the week church. Mm-hmm. But then if there's somebody that needs a room for a couple of days, we'll rent it out for a room. When a group comes, we have home roasters and roasters that come out to the farm every once in a while.
Just want to check it out and see how it is down there.
Yeah, and Jose from Third Day Coffee.
Yeah,
he buys all of my farm boss's coffee. His name is Santos. And
I heard about talking about that earlier.
Yeah, so he came out to meet Santos. Actually, got to help plant Santos's farm, and so to build that relationship. Saturday Morning Coffee buys some of Anna's coffee. They actually went out of business this year. Not necessarily went out of business. It just wasn't making as much money as he wanted to, so he decided to do something else. So
roasting coffee.
Yeah, so he quit roasting coffee. So for 3 years, they've been buying all of Anna's coffee. So he flew out to meet Anna. But yeah, a couple. Kerry Sanders is going to hopefully come out.
Is that the gentleman from Arkansas or Tennessee?
He's from Tennessee, up around Murfreesboro.
Okay. Well, the other night when you were last night when you were talking about that, we've got a Murfreesboro, Arkansas, down with the.
Oh no, this is Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville.
Okay. I tried to look it up, and I was like, "There's no Sanders in South Arkansas."
He's got a coffee company called Sanders Brothers Coffee.
Okay, I did see that one when I was looking. I did see
center
that.
of the country.
But he's a super nice guy.
Getting those little ranch hours.
And he started out with the Be More roaster, and now he's got a big 10-pound roaster.
I don't know if I'll ever go quite that far, but I've been using this one, and it works fine for us. But eventually, I'd like to get one that does over a pound at least.
It's fun to be able to, roast a little volume every once in a while.
Well, I can't I don't know. I just like people to try my coffee, tell me whether they actually like it or not.
Yeah.
And
I think Brad and Bill that were on earlier, both of those guys have a little air roaster. And then Barry has a Be More.
Yeah, I heard him talking about it.
And that sort of looks like the toaster oven with a rotisserie on the inside.
I did look at one of those. They say they do up to a pound, but not quite a pound.
I usually program it and say it's a pound, but only put in like 12 ounces.
I got you.
And then you got a lot more, you can manipulate the heat and all a little bit more. But I just gave my Be More to Bill that was on. So now Bill has an 800 model air roaster, and he has 2 Be Mores. 2
Be Mores and an 800? He can roast quite a bit with that.
He just bought I don't know if he minds me telling it, but he just bought like $1,300 and something worth of coffee from us.
Oh,
so
wow.
He's I'm trying to work with him a little bit. If you're going to grow your business, maybe have a few more options. So he bought like 5 or 6 different coffees.
Uh-huh.
And so with the 5 or 6 coffees, he could do a couple blends and he could come up with, 9 or 10 different options.
Yeah.
And then I think he's got a Facebook page now. I don't think you can have a website if you're a cottage roaster, but I'm not 100% sure. Because he's pretty tech savvy. Some states let you some states cottage law you can't ship at all. Some states you can only ship within your own state. Uh, so there's a whole lot of different regulations. Some states you have to have an FDA license to ship it all. So yeah, you have to really check your own.
I was gonna say there's a gentleman out of Northwest Arkansas that he's got Facebook and all that, but he doesn't have an actual website. It's called Soulways. We occasionally buy roasted coffee off of him. He roasts good coffee.
We did. We haven't since you.
Yeah, I
roasted
haven't
it.
in a while since I started roasting myself because I just want to get better at it, and I like good coffee.
Yeah.
The whole reason why I started is because we were doing a lot of these subscription things where you try different countries' coffees, and you pay like $15 a bag or more. And I got to where I was like, as much as we spend on that, I could buy a small roaster, which I started out with just a popcorn popper. And I bought a few greens to try it. Well, I could never get that thing to roast past the light roast. It just never would go barely past first crack, and then that was it. It was like it was stalled right there.
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble when I did my popcorn popper. It's actually, I'm having a hard trouble. That little white thing at the end of my finger.
It's still there.
That's my little air popper. The boys do popcorn on Sunday night. That's what we have for supper, so my wife doesn't have to cook.
Oh,
So we do the same thing in Honduras and in the States. It just
Okay.
gives her a little bit of quiet time for herself. She'd have to fool with us and feed us.
I went with this 540, and I started out with the normal chamber, and you can only do about 120 grams, in the normal chamber. Now, I'd read an article somewhere, I don't remember where I read it at, but this gentleman, instead of buying one of those Razos or the extension tube, he'd just taken an 800 chamber, picked one of those up and set it on it. So I said, well, I'll try that. $35 for that chamber. It's not really expensive. And it actually worked just fine up to about 215 grams, probably best at around 200 to 210. But it roasts really well. I can get it all the way through first, second crack. If I want to go further, I could, but I usually don't. I usually stop them somewhere in the medium range.
Almost everything I do is medium. We live next to a retirement home, so I have to keep some dark roast.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and I think you'll find a big portion of the specialty coffee is going to be in that medium range.
Yeah, and the only one that we really roast light, or lighter, not even real light, is Ethiopians. I usually keep them light to medium because you get a little more flavor out of those when you do that. I actually blended a little bit of your Honduran, which one was it? I think it was the Limpura wash with some of the Ethiopian and then ground it and tried it. And it was actually really good. With the Yirgacheffe, Ethiopian Yirgacheffe.
Yeah, I'll get some. I get some different coffees every once in a while. I've got a customer that sells probably 130,000 pounds a year.
Oh, wow.
So he's got coffee from like 30 different countries.
Yeah.
And so I'll be in the back, and if I see something, that's just like this coffee from like a 3-pound bag or 2-pound, whatever's in that bag. You just gave it to me to try. And so I purposely, if I see a coffee I'm interested in, I'll ask them a little bit about it. And they'll just throw some in a bag and give it to me. They're pretty nice guys.
Or you roast it when you get down?
No, I like to roast it myself. No,
Yeah.
that's just green coffee. And it's from India. And I don't know how to say that word. It looks like Hoopalang.
Is that the Robusta you were talking about?
This is a Robusta, yeah.
Okay.
So Robusta, does that mean you can go more robust on it and more darker?
No. It's Robusta has more caffeine.
Woo.
It actually doesn't have as
Makes
good
your
a
hair
flavor.
stand up where you didn't think you had hair.
Yeah, basically.
There's 3 coffees, 3 families. One of them's Lavaca, the other one's Robusta, and the other one's Arabica. Arabica is what we grow here on our farm. I was in El Salvador one year, and a guy gave me 2 or a couple of Robusta plants, and I wanted them because the normal layman name for it is Julia, and that's what my wife's name is Julia. So I got a few plants and brought them back and planted them. And so last year I harvested some of the beans. I usually just drink it for myself because one to 12 ounces, of coffee. And so I just drank it myself every year. And last year I harvested the beans. We replanted them in our nursery. And so I've got 240 plants this year that I'm going to plant in the farm. So we're clearing a lot in 2 weeks. And then
For
we'll
that
start,
Robusta?
yeah, for the Robusta. And it's going to be a big lot because then the year after we'll harvest plants again or seeds again. And I want to have about 1,000 of those plants. And so and then we'll have a different option on the farm. But until then, I'm going to start selling this Indian coffee. I guess you call it Indian.
I would
It's from
probably try. I would
India.
probably try a pound of when I make my next order. I'd probably try it
When you plant,
if it's there by then.
how long does it take to?
I won't put it on lime green, but if you want to buy some, I'll put it in with your order.
Okay, I would probably. I mean, I would want it green because I would want to try to roast it myself.
Yeah.
What
Well,
did you,
From seedling to first harvest, how long is it?
how long does it take for first harvest from seedling?
After we plant it,
Yeah,
it's 4 years.
4 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you'll get a little bit. You'll get enough to do a sampling off of after about 3.
They grow pretty quick then. Well, they don't grow so tall. I think they're only like 4 or 5 foot tall.
I think they get taller than that.
Well, Typicas will get up to 20 feet tall.
Yeah,
Oh.
they get pretty big.
But our varieties, and we have a couple Typicas in the farm that I've just let grow to see how tall they'll grow. But our
Oh, really?
varieties, I top them at 6 feet. So
How
that's
far?
just 6 feet. I top them
Okay.
because my guys are only 5 foot.
Yeah.
So
Let's get to them.
if it's more than 6 feet, they start bending the plant over and they'll snap them every once in a while.
Yeah.
If the plant's pretty dry, it hadn't rained a month or so, it'll snap because it doesn't have a lot of water in it. And
That
then
makes
you're just done. You just ruined a plant that it took me 4 years to grow.
Yeah, because if it's not producing for 4 years,
Yeah, and then it won't ever produce after that. So you'll have to cut it down because the majority of the production is from is in the middle to the 3/4 point of the plant.
so they don't really grow much limb or limb weight low. It's all high. That's why they snap so easy.
No, they'll from 12 inches off the ground to the 6 foot point. It's solid limbs about every 8 to 10 inches.
I guess
Yeah.
I've only ever seen the little heirloom ones that people have in their houses or whatnot. The little 2-3 foot tall little copper plant.
Well, those aren't ever going to grow that great.
No.
Being inside's not ideal conditions. I've never seen one that grew and looked really well, like the ones that out on the farm. They're just solid limbs,
Yeah.
and you have to lift the limbs up to see the coffee in there sometimes.
Oh wow.
So yeah, to see all of it, there's obviously some coffee on the outer portion.
I've got a tomato plant that's like that right now.
I think in Kansas, pretty much we're done with the tomatoes.
I've got a little bit going on with my little Tommies, but that's how I found them. I started moving the leaves around. I was like, hey, I still got some Tommies in here.
Yeah, we did raised beds. My wife mostly did all of it.
That's what these are, is raised beds. We did two. Where I'm at, we're real rocky, so it's hard to do an actual garden. So they're just 2 little small raised beds. You can get quite a bit in some raised beds. It surprised me.
Yeah. No, we've had good luck with them, and it's fun. You still end up buying. We only have 2 raised beds. We still end up buying some tomatoes here and there, but it's fun to have your own stuff.
I tell you what, in my little raised bed, we did some zucchini on one end, 2 little plants, and it was producing so much zucchini that I couldn't keep up with it. Like some of them were getting huge. I got like quite a bit of zucchini in the freezer, and I just couldn't keep up with them.
Well, I try to do the yellow crookneck squash. But,
The yellow squash.
yeah, the yellow crookneck squash. I'm gonna have to wrap it up. My son is before he goes to bed, he calls me every night, and
Oh,
so I think our third hour, or no, our second hour, pretty deep.
is it just me and you now? Is there other people on here?
There's some other people watching, but nobody's saying anything but you and I.
Okay, we're probably getting enough to watch. I'm sure.
Well, all right, well, I'm going to cut it off. Thanks for coming on, and feel
Yes,
free to
sir.
jump on anytime.
Yes, sir.
Uh, but no, we'll talk to you again soon. I think we're doing another one on Wednesday night, and I think I'm going to do it from up on top of the property. But I'll send you a thing, and any night you want to jump on, just jump on.
Sounds good.
All right, you guys have a good night.
You too.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're wrapping it up. The rain is starting to come in. Follow us. You can watch this on Legacy Farms Coffee 2010 on Facebook, and YouTube is Legacy Farms Coffee 200. But send us your comments, send us questions, and we start out every episode every week by answering your questions you sent in during the week. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening to it, and you guys have a great night.